A wyvern soared freely across bright skies, circling endlessly, its wings cut through air gracefully, moving without restraint. The sight remained unforgettable, shaping his desire to abandon duty and restrictions forever. Aster stood bloodied beneath vast skies, remembering his origins within House Declan proudly. Despite status, exhaustion from expectations pushed him toward abandoning noble responsibilities. He resolved to live differently, choosing freedom over power. A dark crow appeared, signaling change, as distant skies filled with ominous movement above. Others confronted him, forcing him to acknowledge suppressed magical strength. Power surged through him, confirming he possessed far greater capability than ordinary troubleshooters ever. Aster holding a mysterious tome while tension quietly built. The opponent recognized the magic tome, realizing its value and Aster's dangerous potential. They conflict inevitable as intentions became increasingly clear. Aster admitted uncertainty using the tome, yet understood its importance and hidden potential. The opponent deduced Aster's ignorance, concluding the tome held immense hidden magical worth, demanding the tome. The opponent attempted control, offering false promises. Aster released controlled magic energy, forming a complex spell circle while confronting confidently. The opponent hesitated, overwhelmed, as Aster's power revealed superiority beyond expected capabilities. A sudden attack struck Aster, interrupting control, as danger escalated unpredictably during confrontation. Aster sensed overwhelming danger as a powerful presence approached. A man revealed himself as Declan's leader, Farron von Declan. Aster realized the threat's magnitude, understanding the head of Declan stood before him. The Declan family's legacy appeared, showing their dominance and unmatched magical influence across continents. Farron's strength surpassed all predecessors, marking him as the strongest mage alive. His calm expression concealed terrifying power, leaving others questioning his true nature entirely. Aster showed slight irritation, maintaining composure while facing the overwhelming opponent calmly. Farron mocked him confidently, believing Aster could not match his immense strength. Aster released magic fiercely, proving his aura rivaled the feared. Farron declared overwhelming power, intending to kill Aster. He pressured Aster to surrender, asserting dominance. Aster remained silent, enduring threats as Farron evaluated his abilities. Farron offered alliance, urging Aster to return and strengthen House Declan's legacy together. He promised greatness, insisting the tome would eventually return anyway. Aster accepted cautiously, agreeing outwardly while preparing conditions that would benefit himself later. Aster requested authority, proposing control over the magical house in exchange for cooperation. Farron smiled calmly, amused, while underestimating Aster's resolve and hidden overwhelming magical strength. Aster attacked instantly, demonstrating power capable of defeating countless enemies alone. Farron lowered his gaze, accepting battle. As tension spread, he warned Aster calmly, yet remained confident in his dominance. Aster realized the danger, preparing mentally for the deadly confrontation ahead. He launched forward, unleashing rapid magic attacks, clashing violently against Farron's defenses. Their powers collided explosively, blue and red energies tearing through the battlefield uncontrollably. Farron countered immediately, intensifying the fight. Farron activated a powerful spell, gathering energy, preparing a decisive strike against Aster. He advanced fiercely, exploiting a brief opening, aiming to end the battle instantly. Aster recognizing the weakness, preparing to counterattack at the perfect moment. Farron struck, suddenly catching Aster off guard, disrupting his focus during battle. He claiming their fight measured superiority between them. Clearly now, a massive explosion followed. Flames erupting as their overwhelming powers collided violently together. Farron stood dominant within destruction, claiming restraint while testing Aster's limits during combat. He questioned Aster's loyalty, suggesting surrender and return to Declan's control. Farron doubting Aster's intentions, refusing to believe any sudden submission claims. Aster gathered lightning magic intensely, rejecting submission while preparing overwhelming retaliation against Farron. Energy surged violently, illuminating surroundings as Aster declared his independence from Declan completely. Aster unleashed devastating magic, striking downward with immense force to end confrontation decisively. Aster mocked Declan, unleashing unstable magic, declaring his intent to break free. Farron responded calmly, calling Aster pathetic while preparing overwhelming magical force, the power surrounding himself with destructive energy. Lightning filled skies as Aster recalled past memories, understanding reasons behind his choices. He remembered the wyvern, reinforcing his determination to reject control forever. That memory reminding Aster why he chose independence over inherited power. Farron acknowledged Aster's endurance, recognizing his strength. Aster stood wounded, yet resolute, proving his capability rivaled even Declan's greatest leader. Farron questioned him again, seeking Aster's decision beyond simple battlefield victory. Farron proposed leadership, offering Aster control over another family. Aster understood Declan intended to bind him through political authority. Farron clarified intentions, desiring both Aster's loyalty and possession. Aster knelt calmly, appearing to accept Farron's overwhelming demands. Farron, believing victory secured, reaching forward to claim the offered magic tome. Suddenly, purple energy erupted around Aster, signaling hidden intentions behind his apparent compliance. Farron questioned Aster's actions, sensing danger as unfamiliar forbidden magic surfaced. Aster revealed forbidden power, explaining its origins tied to Declan's hidden brutal experiments. He declared survival, exposing truth, showing forbidden magic born from consuming fallen troubleshooters. Farron questioned Aster's motives, assuming revenge drove his defiance. Aster denied vengeance, recalling fallen teammates while acknowledging harsh realities of their lives. He revealed resolve, wanting only to honor them, ensuring their sacrifices meant something. Aster explained retirement desire, refusing return to servitude, determined to live freely onward. He prepared magic calmly, considering his words final, signaling decisive action approaching quickly. Blue flames surged violently, Declan's signature magic forming a powerful. Aster rejected regret entirely, embracing possible death while holding firmly to his chosen path. He unleashed immense power, showing newfound strength surpassing his former limitations. Aster vowed rebirth, seeking true freedom, determined to end Declan's control completely forever. Aster released blue flames, energy expanding outward as space around him suddenly froze. He noticed everything stopping completely, confusion spreading. Farron stood unmoving nearby. While Aster struggled to understand the strange, halted moment, the magic tome activated itself, glowing intensely as unknown power awakened. Aster raised it instinctively, energy shifting from blue into golden magical formations rapidly. Golden symbols expanded violently, overwhelming him as he questioned the phenomenon. Aster stared at a bucket, confused, as he found a coin. He recalled burning moments before, yet now found himself kneeling. Unease spread across him, sensing something wrong. Aster observed the city, realizing he had returned to a place from past. Memories surfaced quickly, identifying the gray zone where his life once began harshly. Shock overwhelmed him completely, recognizing undeniable proof that he had traveled back time. Aster looked around carefully, noticing familiar scenery. He realized his body younger now, confirming time reversal truly affected his existence. Aster noticed strange magic mark remaining, questioning why this anomaly persisted after regression. Aster examined the glowing tome, realizing it possessed unknown powers. He accepted reality, recognizing this was not illusion but genuine second chance. Determination strengthened within him, acknowledging he was alive again and no longer powerless. Aster stood confidently, embracing opportunity, believing every action now could lead toward success. He questioned success deeply, reconsidering goals beyond survival. A memory surfaced within him, once guided his decisions. He remembered standing with comrades, sharing dreams, despite harsh realities within the gray zone. That dream shaped his resolve, influencing his past decision to abandon his role. Their hardships reminding him why change mattered more than survival alone now. Aster recalled hardships that forced them into miserable gutter lives. His comrade explained, suffering came not from hunger, but lack of education instead. Aster listened carefully, realizing ignorance trapped them under control of powerful nobles always. The dream emerged clearly, where Aster wished to retire and build something meaningful. He imagined a place where anyone could read freely regardless of status or wealth. That vision breaking cycles that kept people trapped. Aster extended ambition further, envisioning a grand tower representing knowledge. The tower would welcome all, offering books without restriction, rejecting discrimination entirely forever. He solidified resolve, planning future where knowledge grants freedom beyond oppressive control systems. Aster imagined placing Declan's secret manual publicly. He breaking noble control over techniques once hoarded selfishly. Excitement grew within him, satisfied imagining his plan. Aster considered acquiring the manual, deciding future actions would determine. Suddenly, attackers interrupted him, striking unexpectedly and forcing Aster into reaction. He retaliated instinctively, engaging in combat, despite still adjusting to his younger body. Aster, relying on experience from countless past battles, survived. He countered attacks efficiently, blocking strikes while maintaining control over the chaotic situation. Observing carefully, Aster noted precision, realizing he had already landed multiple decisive hits. Aster closing distance while preparing to strike his opponent again. His attack landed cleanly, shocking the opponent. Aster noticed energy reacting strangely, his body showing signs of unusual glowing power. The opponent retaliated violently, striking Aster with anger and overwhelming physical. Pain spread through Aster's body, yet emotional wounds from past experiences hurt deeper. Despite injuries, Aster endured silently, refusing to collapse under continuous attacks. Aster seized opportunity suddenly, creating distance as the opponent lost focus momentarily. The opponent shouting angrily while Aster moved quickly across the battlefield. Aster retreated strategically, deciding survival mattered more than victory in this early stage. Aster accepted pain, reinforcing identity as a veteran who never quits. He assessed his weakened body, realizing past strength no longer matched. Determination shifted focus, deciding to rebuild physical condition before pursuing greater ambitions ahead. A stranger approached Aster, observing him carefully and initiating unexpected interaction within quiet alley. Aster remained cautious, analyzing the boy's appearance and behavior while keeping his guard raised. His presence suggesting hidden danger beneath seemingly harmless demeanor outwardly. The boy is Damien, revealing personal details while observing Aster's reactions closely. Aster sensed something unsettling, realizing Damien possessed knowledge beyond normal expectations unexpectedly. He decided to disengage quickly, recognizing danger and avoiding deeper involvement. Aster sat calmly while Damien insisted on following him without hesitation. He showed irritation, rejecting him, yet remained alert to Damien's unusual persistence. Damien reached toward him, hinting awareness of Aster's injured condition. He activated magic suddenly, releasing a glowing healing spell around Aster's body. Aster realizing this ability far exceeded simple healing magic, Damien revealing mastery of advanced techniques beyond normal expectations completely. Aster recognized the technique, identifying it as a secret art from Blander family. He understood the implication, realizing dangerous political forces had already begun involving him. Aster questioned Damien silently, suspecting deeper secrets behind his presence and power. Damien revealed strange eyes, unsettling Aster as hidden identity. Aster recognized him instantly, recalling the infamous Blander monster, known for brutality and chaos. Fear rose within Aster, realizing the dangerous individual now stood directly before him. Damien behaved innocently, contrasting sharply with terrifying reputation Aster remembered. Aster felt disbelief growing, struggling to reconcile appearance with knowledge of future events. Confusion deepened further as Aster questioned whether his memories matched present reality anymore. Aster remembered past missions, traveling under Declan orders toward Blander territory. He moved quickly with allies, hearing rumors about a deadly monster within a state. Despite uncertainty, they advanced deeper, unaware of the true horror. Aster entered the burning structure, witnessing destruction and chaos spreading throughout the interior. There he saw a man brutally tearing victims apart. The scene confirmed truth, a human committing monstrous violence. The man healed endlessly, laughing wildly, showing complete disregard for injuries or pain. He continued slaughtering relentlessly, earning title as Blander's monster feared by everyone. Aster realized the enemy's identity, recognizing Damien von Blander as unstoppable threat alive. Aster encountered young Damien, noticing his unusual behavior. Damien reacted strangely, showing curiosity and innocence, contrasting his later terrifying reputation. He suddenly suggested eating, revealing simple desires despite unsettling presence surrounding him there. Aster questioned Damien's intentions, unsure whether to trust his unpredictable personality and actions. Damien displayed collected money, appearing normal. He claimed friendship unexpectedly, placing trust on Aster without hesitation or clear reasoning. Aster observing Damien's behavior while remaining cautious of hidden dangers. Damien insisted on companionship, dragging Aster along enthusiastically as evening arrived. Aster acknowledged having a friend, reflecting on the unexpected connection formed. Aster rested indoors after eating, observing unfamiliar surroundings. He felt relaxed momentarily, unaware of Damien moving quietly. Aster questioned Damien's actions, realizing the boy lacked basic knowledge about normal living. Damien explained his past, revealing he always lived outside without proper shelter before. Aster listened carefully, understanding Damien's loneliness and absence of family support throughout life. Their conversation exposing painful truths about abandonment and survival. Aster asked further, trying to understand Damien's situation without treating it competitively. Damien admitted running away, surviving alone for extended periods without guidance or protection. Aster realized the severity, recognizing Damien endured dangerous circumstances far beyond ordinary hardship. Damien explained his sleeping habits casually, revealing unusual patterns. Aster realizing Damien misunderstood time, showing ignorance about normal daily routines. Damien relaxed happily, Unaware his statements exposed abnormal lifestyle, Aster observed carefully, noticing inconsistencies, concluding Damien's behavior differed significantly from ordinary people. He lay down, considering how to handle Damien's unpredictable personality safely. Aster decided patience was necessary, planning to guide Damien gradually while maintaining caution. Damien mentioned his past, revealing dangerous experiences that shaped his current unstable mindset. Aster warned him calmly, establishing boundaries to prevent unnecessary trouble during their stay. Damien accepted lightly, while Aster remained alert, understanding risks remained. Aster realized limitations of knowledge gained before regression occurred. He recalled numerous techniques, yet understood none matched the catastrophic power. That memory drove determination, pushing him toward mastering ultimate. Aster focused deeply, identifying Declan's foundational breathing technique as key to all magic. He recognized its importance, knowing it could harmonize every mana attribute, with confidence. Aster prepared himself, recalling knowledge memorized before his previous death carefully. He activated the technique, causing his body intense unbearable strain. The power surged violently, as internal energy threatened to collapse. Aster struggled to endure, realizing his body was not ready for such force. Aster activated advanced spell, realizing it belonged only to noble bloodline. Mana surged violently, purifying circuits, forcing energy flow beyond. The technique triggered massive mana shower, overwhelming surroundings with intense radiant magical output. Aster collapsed briefly, questioning elapsed time while regaining physical awareness slowly. He noticing cleaner mana flow and improved internal magical stability despite strain. Aster acknowledged progress. Understanding purification strengthened his body and control greatly. Aster faced reality, knowing defeating Declan remained extremely difficult, despite newfound strength gained. He clenched his fist, realizing his survival chances had increased compared to before. Remembering past identity, Aster trusting his experience against impossible odds ahead. Damien admired surroundings cheerfully, noticing changes in appearance. Aster observed calmly, realizing Damien's presence could attract enemies' attention. Damien asked casually, unaware Aster already planned actions. Aster declared intention silently, preparing to create chaos while walking through crowded streets. Locals noticed them quickly, whispering about unfamiliar appearances. Tension increased as attention gathered, marking them as targets within the unfamiliar environment. Aster attacked suddenly, striking a man brutally, demonstrating overwhelming strength. The victim collapsed instantly, shocking others. As Aster maintained cold composure, bystanders reacted in panic, confusion spreading rapidly as Aster asserted dominance. Aster faced familiar enemies, recognizing faces from past. They reacted aggressively, unaware of Aster's true strength and dangerous intentions here. Aster smiled calmly, anticipating how far his overwhelming power would dominate them today. Aster delivered rapid blows with precise movements, using mana to enhance each strike. His attacks overwhelmed the thugs before they could react. One by one, their formation broke under his relentless assault. Meanwhile, Damien observed from the side, captivated by Aster's technique and speed. Rather than join in the violence, he watched in awe, admiring the chaos with childlike wonder. Following the clash, Damien healed an injured boy who had been caught in the scuffle. His magic emitted a gentle glow, calming the wounded. Although the boy expressed gratitude, he remained terrified, unsure how to process the strange duo. Damien smiled, as if unaware of the fear he caused. Bodies lay scattered across the street. Some unconscious, others retreating. Aster stood ready, surveying the aftermath. Damien, still cheerful, focused on a fallen opponent and shared a few words. Together, they left a strong impression on everyone present. Later, under the moonlit sky, both stood before a line of defeated trainees. The gathering had become an unexpected lesson. Aster, bare-chested and calm, reflected on the results with satisfaction. Despite the absurd events, the day marked progress. Damien's enthusiasm balanced Aster's focus, and together, they walked forward a strange pair, reshaping the rules around them. After the mock battle, the defeated group requested to leave, clearly shaken. Aster allowed it, but the awkward moment escalated when they realized they were being dismissed from their own home. Damien's threatening tone quickly changed their minds, and they retreated without argument. However, something unusual stirred in the air. Aster sensed a powerful presence rapidly approaching, cloaked, secretive, and precise. This wasn't ordinary hostility. It felt like a pursuer, skilled and familiar with the shadows. Despite his caution, he realized someone from Blander had tracked them down first. As pressure built, Aster focused his mana, quickly analyzing the density and flow. He knew he couldn't fight blindly. Instead of panicking, he remembered who he was, a seasoned troubleshooter reborn with knowledge and purpose. Channeling his energy, he compressed and refined it into a single, decisive force. With timing as his ally, he struck. A blast of gathered mana surged upward, piercing the night sky like a spear. This was his one chance, and he seized it without hesitation. Moments later, a familiar figure arrived, shocked by the aftermath. Aster stood at the center, calm and composed. His actions spoke louder than explanation. The threat had been neutralized before it could strike. Damien's shocked reaction to the arriving butler, Alfredo, stirred chaos. With exaggerated emotion, Damien clung to him, declaring how long he had searched. The elderly servant, equally dramatic, refused to release the young master until he returned home. Aster observed silently, bemused by the reunion unfolding in front of him. Once the scene calmed, Alfredo introduced himself formally to Aster, acknowledging his close bond with Damien. He politely extended an invitation to visit the Blander family estate. Aster, though suspicious, considered the opportunity. He knew that gaining access to powerful families and their libraries aligned with his long-term goal of creating the greatest archive of knowledge. The decision made, Aster agreed. As the moon hung overhead, they traveled to the mansion by carriage. Arriving at the grand estate, Aster took in the sight of the towering gates and well-kept grounds. It was his first official visit, one filled with potential. Inside, the staff prepared to welcome Damien. Alfredo passed the responsibility to a maid named Lancy. Damien's cheerful expression faltered upon seeing her, hinting at an uneasy relationship. As he followed her inside nervously, the atmosphere grew tense. What began as a strategy now led Aster deeper into the heart of noble politics. As night settled over the Blander estate, the head butler arrived at the mansion with urgency. Summoned by the matron, he delivered a report regarding Damien's whereabouts and condition. The moment Damien's name was mentioned, matron's anxiety burst forth as destructive mana flared around her. She demanded reassurance. Only after hearing he was unharmed did her magic settle, though the air remained tense. Relief spread across the room. The matron, known once as the Blood Witch, had a reputation that justified the fear she inspired. Everyone in the mansion was aware. If anything happened to her son, few would survive her wrath. The butler handled her calmly, yet noted inwardly how close the situation had come to disaster. Conversation shifted as they discussed the identity of the boy who'd helped Damien Aster. Though his intentions remained unclear, his actions had left an impression. His power, precision, and awareness suggested someone far beyond a common trouble-shooter. The butler confirmed that Aster had noticed his surveillance and responded with a preemptive mana bullet, a feat requiring formidable control. Impressed yet cautious, the matron acknowledged Aster's skill. The butler, recognizing Aster's unique capabilities, made a quiet request, permission to approach Aster further, not just as a guest but as a potential ally. The next morning, the butler approached Aster with unexpected urgency, extending an offer to become his successor. He spoke proudly of the honor, believing no one from the lower districts would decline. However, Aster's rejection was swift and firm, stunning the older man. The confident response left the butler speechless. Standing tall, Aster made it clear he had no interest in titles or status. His goals remained unchanged: power through knowledge, not inherited positions. Aster listened quietly as Damien vented his frustration, unaware of the deeper history between the young mage and the butler master. Though once considered a successor, Damien had chosen his current path willingly. Aster acknowledged the man's mentorship, but preferred the independence he had now earned. The elder butler, observing the interaction, recognized Aster's origins in the gray zone and the talent that had brought him here. That background, filled with hardship, explained the boy's firm self-assurance. The butler, once a commoner himself, spoke of the vastness of the world. He assumed Aster felt invincible at his age, but Aster disagreed. His answer caused the man to grit his teeth in frustration. Soon after, a new setting emerged: an open battlefield. Aster's lack of decorum angered an instructor, who attempted to belittle his worth. Despite the harsh insults, Aster remained composed, absorbing each word. Back at the estate, the butler master made a formal entrance. His presence drew immediate respect from the trainees, who stood in synchronized greeting. Curious, he asked Aster for his thoughts on the group. Aster noted their strong magical presence and discipline. However, as he examined their expressions, he remarked on their dull eyes: trained bodies, perhaps, but lacking true spirit. Aster acknowledged the presence of power, but his response surprised the butler master. When offered the chance to shine alongside the elite, Aster calmly turned it down. He stated he hated the light, a clear refusal of the path laid before him. The butler was left confused, but before he could push further, another trainee, Winstor, stepped forward. Winstor claimed Astor didn't truly feel anything. Otherwise, he wouldn't have rejected the offer. Proposing a new approach, he asked permission to give Astor a taste of real magic. The butler considered the idea risky, but intriguing. Eventually, he agreed and asked Astor directly if he was open to a duel. Astor, already aware of how the others viewed him an outsider, a lucky upstart, accepted without hesitation. When asked to choose his opponent, Astor pointed at Winstor. Without pause, he extended his challenge to 4 more trainees. The room fell silent, as Astor boldly declared he would face all 5 at once. One of them mocked the challenge, warning him to back down if afraid. Rather than retreat, Astor confirmed his readiness. The butler, entertained, allowed the match. Now, the entire room turned to see if the vagrant mage could stand against trained elites. The training hall grew tense, as Astor stood alone in the center, facing 5 chosen opponents. Observers gathered around, whispering about the unusual setup. The butler master, watching from above, noted the value of unpredictability. This duel wasn't about status, but potential. Meanwhile, Damien silently clenched his teeth. Although he wasn't chosen, he clearly wanted to step in and shield Astor. A maid quickly reminded him that such interference would draw Lady Gano's wrath, forcing him to stay put. Other onlookers, including fellow servants, reacted with surprise. No one had expected Astor to make such a bold move. Despite the commotion, the instructor moved to initiate the duel. With approval granted, the challenge officially began. Astor remained calm, fully aware of the disdain directed at him. Being labeled a lucky vagrant had always lingered in the background, and this fight was his opportunity to shatter that perception. When offered the option of a turn-based fight, Astor refused. He demanded a free for all, further irritating his opponents. That declaration only fueled their anger. Once the match started, the first attacker lunged at him with force. Astor immediately countered with swift magical energy, catching the enemy off guard. The result was immediate. One opponent went down, shocked and defeated in a single move. Astor advanced calmly while one of his opponents hesitated, realizing too late that the duel wasn't simple. Drawing concentrated mana into his hands, Astor demonstrated a level of magical control far beyond expectations. His precision shocked the crowd and caught his enemies off guard the moment they recognized the incoming attack as a magic bullet. It was already too late. Without wasting energy, he knocked down another opponent, then turned his focus immediately to the next. Each blow was calculated and deliberate. His third strike combined force and efficiency, sending his target sprawling. Rather than show restraint, Astor continued, declaring that these experiences would become lessons. He punished arrogance with brutal clarity. To him, this wasn't chaos, it was disciplined, physical magic. Astor's sudden burst of magical energy caught everyone by surprise. Shocked gasps filled the hall as his opponent collapsed under the attack's sheer force. Trainees stared wide-eyed as dust settled, revealing Astor standing firm at the center, fists clenched and clothes torn. From the balcony, a nobleman analyzed the magic, astonished by the precise compression that made the spell so potent. He recognized the refined control and acknowledged it silently, though unease shadowed his expression. Flashes of a failed spell from the past haunted the man's thoughts. Had it struck properly, the outcome might have been different. Now, facing Astor's refined skill and brutal efficiency, he couldn't ignore the truth. While others used magic academically, Astor applied it with raw instinct and devastating impact. Suddenly, Lady Gamo arrived with urgency. Her presence shifted the mood instantly. Everyone paused as she descended. Students quickly explained what happened, while Astor looked away, uneasy. As she questioned the event, the wounded and unconscious lay scattered around the arena. Her tone sharpened. This wasn't a test, it was reckless endangerment. Orders followed. Trainees were to be withdrawn. Without hesitation, she dismissed the instructor responsible. When Astor tried to explain, Lady Gamo cut him off. He was fired. Stunned, Astor stood speechless. That evening, under moonlight, Lady Gamo confronted Alfredo in private. Though he admitted fault and braced for consequences, she shifted focus to the trainees. She questioned whether Damien had supported Astor during the earlier chaos. Alfredo hesitated, then revealed that Astor had acted entirely alone, no external help, no intervention, just skill. Despite the tension, Lady Gamo calmly sipped her tea while listening. Alfredo recounted the scene, describing Astor's control over mana, and the power behind his compressed magic bullet. It wasn't the first time he'd used such a technique, which made his precision even more noteworthy. Her expression darkened. Aster had overpowered multiple trainees swiftly, without excessive magic or assistance. That level of tactical awareness and mana efficiency was rare. Recognizing the danger and potential, she ordered a closer evaluation. Later, Aster entered the reception room. Damien sat beside Lady Gamo, who greeted Aster and invited him to sit. Aster sensed the seriousness in the air. She presented a box and mentioned Alfredo's earlier promise. Aster's thoughts flashed back to the challenge: survive for 1 minute and earn a reward. To his surprise, she had prepared the gift herself. He hadn't expected it to come this quickly, nor directly from Lady Gamo. Lady Gamo allowed Aster to open the box. As the lid lifted, a brilliant glow poured out, reflecting awe in Damien's eyes. Inside lay a high-grade item, a badge, like token, rarely awarded and reserved only for top-tier recruits in Blander's elite magic divisions. Thou honored. Aster hesitated. He questioned the purpose behind such a generous reward. Lady Gamo assured him there were no hidden motives and no conditions attached. Even Damien, surprised by the gesture, remained silent. Despite doubts, Aster accepted it with a respectful nod, still cautious of future obligations. Moments later, Lady Gamo revealed her true reason for calling him. She extended a new proposal, an invitation to attend the academy alongside Damien. The request wasn't sudden. Damien had resisted enrollment for a year. His refusal had complicated things, but with Aster's influence, there might be hope. Bianca, observing quietly, revealed that Damien had a strong attachment to Aster. This bond was the reason she made the proposal. Forcing Damien alone wouldn't work. He might run again. Yet if Aster agreed, there was a chance. Damien, hearing the conversation, immediately declined. He had no intention of attending. Aster understood. Without a compelling reason, Damien wouldn't change his mind. Aster considered the Academy's offer with measured thought. He understood the opportunity held weight, connections, and status mattered in a world driven by influence. Still, the notion of being bound to an institution stirred unease. He agreed to consider it, but wasn't ready to decide. Switching focus, Aster brought up a personal question to Lady Gamo. He wanted to understand why Damien had turned down Alfredo's offer to be his successor. The question lingered. Damien's memory surfaced a comical moment where Alfredo had forced him to kneel, despite protests, rather than feeling honored. Damien found the situation absurd. The memory triggered a mischievous grin. His answer, delivered with dry amusement, left the room stunned. Lady Gamo and Alfredo could only react in disbelief. Night fell as Damien quietly trained under the moonlight. Surrounded by glowing magic circles, he tested a high-grade artifact. Even with minimal absorption, his mana expanded considerably. The enhancement surpassed expectations, likely due to his altered flame-born constitution. Unlike typical spirit power absorption that causes side effects, this process felt clean, with no backlash. The results confirmed the artifact's extraordinary quality. After completing the absorption, he reflected on the Academy offer. Although he'd initially dismissed it, the situation now felt more complex. Advantages like structure, protection, and training were tempting. However, the obligations that came with enrollment still gave him pause. He sensed potential risks hidden beneath the opportunity. To clear his mind, he decided to take a walk through the building. While stepping outside, a silver-haired boy approached and abruptly questioned him. Damien instinctively assessed the stranger. The platinum blonde hair suggested a distant connection to Damien's family line. Frustrated, Damien tried to brush the encounter off, but the boy remained persistent. Their conversation shifted into teasing and mild provocation. Remarks about appearance and personality flew back and forth. Damien, amused yet annoyed, sarcastically denied being Aster. The silver-haired boy, undeterred, continued, leading to an awkward yet oddly humorous misunderstanding that escalated with Alfredo dramatically re-entering the scene. Damien's brief denial failed to convince the silver-haired boy. With a sharp eye, the boy quickly recognized Damien's identity from his distinct expression. Realizing the act wouldn't hold, Damien gave in with a smirk. The boy, irritated yet smug, scolded him for lying so casually. Meanwhile, Alfredo stood nearby, silently watching the banter unfold. Tension escalated. The boy demanded a future meeting at the Mage Hall, clearly intending to confront Damien more formally, rather than argue. Damien accepted the challenge, brushing it off without concern. As the boy left, Alfredo questioned him, but Damien insisted it was nothing serious, viewing the timing as oddly convenient. Once the boy departed, Damien turned to the head butler with a request. He wanted to meet Lady Gamo immediately. Permission was granted, and by morning, he appeared before her. Bianca greeted him warmly, surprised at his early visit. Without hesitation, Damien declared his decision. He would enroll in the academy. Bianca, pleased by the unexpected choice, moved quickly to initiate preparations. She instructed him to settle in and make himself comfortable. Her support was clear. Damien responded with gratitude, formally acknowledging her assistance. The decision marked a shift. His next chapter at the academy would soon begin. Bianca quietly observed the room, sensing the significance of the decision that had just been made. As confirmation arrived that Aster had agreed to enroll, Alfredo erupted with overwhelming enthusiasm. His dramatic reaction celebrated the fiery spirit he believed he saw in Aster, envisioning a bright future ahead. Though Bianca remained composed, she noted the financial concerns that would soon follow. Tuition beyond the first semester wouldn't be easy. Coming from the gray zone, Aster lacked financial support. Alfredo, ever the optimist, believed this problem would resolve itself once Aster's hunger for knowledge pushed him forward. He imagined himself stepping in as a savior, his sponsorship lighting the path ahead. Bianca, unimpressed by the outburst, reminded Alfredo to lower his voice. He sheepishly excused himself, heading off to the kitchen. Once alone, she reflected on Alfredo's excitement. Years of rejection had finally turned into hope. Still, she acknowledged the plan's flaws. The strategy was impulsive, perhaps even clumsy, and likely mirrored the very method Alfredo once fell for. As Alfredo dashed off, sparkling with joy, Bianca could only shake her head. Meanwhile, Aster made his way through the academy grounds. Reaching the Mage Hall, he searched for the silver-haired boy, realizing he never learned his name. Aster was greeted by a robed man holding a candle. Without much explanation, the guide led him through dim corridors toward a large door. The moment felt off, but Aster followed. Just before entering, he was warned to mind his head, a strange comment that soon made sense. As he pushed the door open, papers unexpectedly flew at his face, disrupting his focus. Inside, he gathered himself. Brushing off the distraction, a voice called out, confirming his name. The man introduced himself as Wenji von Blandor and welcomed Aster with calm formality. Aster processed the name and immediately connected it to the annoying silver-haired boy from before. Realizing that Brat was Wenji's younger brother left him both irritated and surprised. Aster silently observed the academy grounds from above, his cloak blending into the night. Years spent infiltrating magical institutions as a troubleshooter had taught him patterns hidden beneath tradition. Beneath every spire and study hall, he saw the same thing: mages obsessed with knowledge, yet crumbling under unseen burdens. Within the walls, he identified a curious phenomenon among those immersed in constant study: hair loss. These pen holders, bound to research and sleepless nights, moved through a silent transformation. The first signs were subtle hair thinned from repeated pulling, giving way to self-denial masked by hoods. Eventually, that denial faded. Some exposed their condition with resignation. Others chose to shave their heads entirely, embracing practicality over pride. Yet the final stage brought desperation. A few turned their magic inward, attempting to reverse the process. Still, no spell had succeeded in restoring what was lost. Then came a man who defied that cycle. Young, confident, and remarkably composed, he stood out from the weary scholars. His bearing hinted at nobility, yet he showed none of their usual arrogance. Despite his age, he held the title of Vice Dean. That alone marked him as exceptional. Aster, evaluating him quietly, understood. This man had both talent and purpose, traits worth noting. As the conversation shifted, the Vice Dean revealed his real purpose. He presented Aster with a bold proposition: undertake a deadly mission in exchange for a forbidden book. The tome, surrounded by magical light, held the core secret of the Blandor family knowledge, powerful enough to alter fate. Aster, though momentarily stunned, sensed the magnitude of what was being offered. Meanwhile, in a serene greenhouse, a woman walked among blooming sunflowers. Lost in thought, she recalled how Aster had never once asked for favors or leaned on personal connections. Since arriving at the academy, he operated independently, rarely stepping into others' domains. Her observations hinted at deep admiration. Memories of his friendship with Damien surfaced. Despite knowing the boy's background, Aster treated him no differently. That sincerity, coupled with an absence of flattery, set him apart. The woman understood. Aster was like a bird, unbound, unwilling to remain confined within any one place. Yet such freedom made him unpredictable. She knew someone like him could slip away, if not handled carefully. Determined not to lose such potential, she began considering ways to keep him close. His talent wasn't something she could ignore, not for her own goals, and certainly not for Damien's future. The man before Aster wore a calm smile. yet his intentions remained concealed. Even he seemed unsure whether the face he presented was genuine or a mask shaped by duty, urging caution. He warned Aster not to be blinded by reward. Yet the moment Aster heard enough to understand the stakes, his answer came swiftly, not out of recklessness, but clarity. The unease of uncertainty weighed more heavily on him than the risk itself. Their exchange took a turn as tension tightened. Aster, unflinching, invited the man to speak freely. He'd act only if the task aligned with his own principles. Despite the underlying threat, he met the moment with unexpected composure, even jesting about his second chance at life. Suddenly, the atmosphere changed. A ritual ignited, violet energy surged across the chamber. The ceremonial space erupted in light, signaling a binding spell or magical pact. Aster stood within its center, unfazed by the intense force swirling around him. Moments later, the man expressed admiration. The test, veiled as a negotiation, had been passed. He admitted seeking someone beyond the Blander bloodline to entrust with a critical mission. Aster's unexpected resolve, steady judgment, and ability to face danger directly had revealed the very qualities the man hoped to find. A revelation shifted the tone. The man admitted he was under surveillance by the Devolan family. Aster, curious and alert, learned that the true motive lay in forbidden research into Devolan's heavenly origins magic. While the research was supposedly meant to uncover weaknesses, it had evolved into something far more dangerous. The vice, Dean confessed that the pursuit of truth had consumed him. Instead of stopping at analysis, he began exploring replication. Diagrams, glyphs, and magical equations danced through the air as he revealed a terrifying reality. He wasn't just a scholar. He had become obsessed. Faced with this madness, Aster quickly understood. The man across from him was more than reckless. He was driven beyond logic, dangerously unstable. The man admitted he couldn't stop himself. His obsession had grown beyond logic, and Aster realized this wasn't just eccentricity, it was madness masked by purpose. As he pieced things together, Aster remembered the event from his past life, Declan's devastating assault on the Blander family. The motive had always seemed unclear, but now it aligned perfectly with what he was hearing. The trigger had been research into the forbidden Thousand Circle magic. That same magic was now being pursued again. The vice. Dean had seen its potential from the start and sacrificed everything for it. When the ritual's power flared, Aster recognized its scale. It mirrored what once annihilated his former lineage. In the aftermath, the topic shifted. The man, now speaking more openly, confirmed the Thousand Circle research wasn't shared with his family. He suspected Blander had discovered his work and planted a spy. Yet the source of the leak appeared more subtle. Someone had deliberately let the formula slip through acquisition routes. Still cautious, he revealed his goal: complete the stalled research through Aster. In return, he offered the valuable healing light spell. The task was simple: deliver a thesis to a professor at Demon Academy. Aster, calculating the reward, saw not a burden but a perfect opportunity. Bought the healing light spell and the completed Thousand Circle technique as full compensation. He framed it as proper compensation for risking his life, refusing to proceed without a clear agreement. The vice, Dean hesitated, then accepted Aster's terms, though not without adding a condition. The Thousand Circle formula, once complete, had to be kept secret. The stakes were too high to risk exposure. Aster, calculating the risk, acknowledged the demand, but ensured he'd still receive the promised rewards. With the deal sealed, attention shifted to the next step. Aster inquired about Professor Farron, the man to whom he'd deliver the thesis. The vice, Dean assured him of Farron's credibility, explaining their history as former rivals in the academy. Despite their competitive past, the man trusted Farron's abilities. That night, Aster prepared for departure. He packed the thesis alongside numerous heavy books left by Henzi. Inside the pile, a personal letter was tucked away. Reading it, Aster rolled his eyes. Henzi had not only selected his study materials, but assigned a reading schedule as well. Though irritated, Aster recognized it as genuine care, hidden behind blunt instruction and excessive preparation. Stacks of magical texts towered before Aster, each one carefully selected by Henzi. The structure was clear, a step-by-step progression from basic theory to advanced arcane principles. Recognizing the effort, Aster couldn't deny the genius behind the organization. Every detail had been optimized to accelerate growth. He began reading immediately. While turning pages, he noticed a document listing book sponsors. Henzi's name appeared again, confirming the personal investment. Aster reflected on their bond, though unconventional. The access Henzi gave to high-level texts felt like a privilege reserved for a close friend, not merely a former noble. This foundation would support more than his studies. It would shape the future tower he envisioned. That tower would become a place of knowledge, open to anyone with the will to learn. What began as a favor had become an unexpected treasure. Elsewhere, the white-haired man evaluated Astor's potential. Initially prepared to discard him after delivery, he now reconsidered. Astor's focus and defiance intrigued him. He laughed at Astor's boldness but respected his clarity. While most students groveled, Astor's gaze had shown no fear, only resolve. The man now viewed him as a peer, not a pawn yet. One question remained: with all that intellect, could Astor really not know how to read? Morning light signaled the next step in Astor's journey. With preparations complete, he packed the last of his things. A knock reminded him that departure was near. Composed and dressed in formal attire, Astor made his way to the carriage awaiting him. While en route, an attendant explained the simple onboarding process, awaiting them at the academy. As a special case, both Astor and Damien were exempt from the entrance exam. Their status made this privilege unsurprising, though Astor inwardly acknowledged the benefit. The idea of joining as a full-fledged student still felt strange, but not unwelcome. Soon after, they were greeted by Damien's guardian. She offered warm wishes to both, expressing hopes that Astor would find the outcome he sought. He responded with gratitude, quietly internalizing her encouragement. Determination filled his steps. Xenix, the continent's most prestigious academy, now lay ahead. That institution held the key to advancement, power, and new alliances. He intended to seize every opportunity it offered. Thoughts of rivalry and ambition surfaced as the carriage rolled forward. No longer burdened by hesitation, Astor looked toward the future with clear resolve. Whatever awaited inside those gates, competition, danger, or growth, he welcomed it. With purpose in his stride, he declared inwardly, "I'm coming." The carriage rumbled through the city, its wheels rattling steadily as it carried two young mages toward a new chapter. Inside, Astor flipped through a thick magic tome, quietly reflecting on the teachings of Henyu, a scholar he deeply respected. Though the fundamentals of magic remained unchanged, interpretations shifted endlessly with each practitioner. Astor understood that mastering magic required more than power, it demanded insight. His thoughts turned to water, a prime example of how a single element could manifest differently. For a healer, water brought life and calm. A battle mage saw it as a destructive force, crashing down with power. Astor viewed it as potential shaped by knowledge, will, and purpose. The memory of a red-eyed mage forging water into chains with violent force stayed with him. Magic was as flexible as the mind behind it. Suddenly, the carriage jolted to a stop. Damien's cheerful voice broke the silence as he pointed out their arrival. Xenian Academy's towering gates stood ahead, its grandeur both welcoming and imposing. As the door opened, the Academy's guide explained the entrance ritual. From this point, students would walk in alone. Astor stepped down, alone, yet more prepared than ever. He advanced toward the beginning of his new path. Inside the grand auditorium, rows of new students filtered in, murmurs echoing through the high ceilings. Damien's eyes lit up at the crowd's size, marveling at the number of attendees. Astor, more reserved, remained observant, noting the available seats based on assigned classes. Despite Damien's urge to sit randomly, Astor insisted on following the instructions to avoid complications. As they searched for their seats, an accidental bump disrupted their movement. Damien collided with a large, stern-looking student. The clash caught the attention of others nearby. Though initially startled, Damien brushed it off with a laugh, pretending it was nothing. The towering student, however, didn't share the sentiment. Damien tried to defuse the situation with a light-hearted apology, but it backfired. The student demanded an explanation for the stain on his clothes, his voice filled with tension. Astor watched closely, assessing the threat. Damien, unfazed, exaggerated his apology by enthusiastically wiping the man's clothes, making the stain worse instead of better. Annoyance shifted into rage. The confrontation escalated quickly. Fury sparked in the man's eyes, and with a roar, he struck Damien with magical force. The blow sent a shockwave through the room. Onlookers paused. A simple misunderstanding had just erupted into a dangerous public conflict. Tension hung thick as Damien stepped in, boldly confronting the older student with a firm grip. Calm but assertive, he warned that the situation was spiraling out of hand. Astor stood by, steady and silent, prepared to back him. When challenged, Damien declared himself a friend promptly and without hesitation. The larger student smirked, dismissing Damien's loyalty as foolishness. He promised consequences for interfering and threatened to make an example of both. Astor, watching quietly, realized avoiding trouble on the first day was already impossible. Accepting the inevitable, he readied himself for a direct response. Meanwhile, whispers spread among the gathering students. Spectators questioned the identities of the fighters and speculated about the outcome. One recognized the aggressive upperclassman as a descendant of the prestigious de Lanfey family, known for overwhelming power. Confidence swelled among those familiar with the name. Jeers erupted from the crowd, mocking the newcomers. To stir conflict further, one instigator manipulated a protective spell barrier, establishing a duel zone and locking the combatants inside. Students began gathering around the glowing dome. From the shadows, another figure emerged confidently. With smug composure, he introduced himself as Hickster, the second son of the de Lanfey line. As power surged around him, he asked Astor one simple question. "What is your name?" Astor stood unfazed as he faced Hickster, calmly admitting his lack of noble blood. Instead of boasting lineage, he described himself as a mere bystander, drawing sneers from his opponent. Hickster mocked the disparity, belittling Astor's status and offering the first strike out of pity. Smiling slightly, Astor stepped forward, amused rather than intimidated. He launched a bold verbal jab, provoking Hickster's rage. Enraged, the noble charged in with brute force, magic and muscle combined. Astor met him head-on without hesitation. Their fists clashed in a burst of power. Hickster unleashed dark red energy, only to be countered by Astor's concentrated spell. With a sharp movement, Astor broke through his opponent's guard, landing a decisive, blood-drawing blow that shifted the battle's momentum instantly. Astor's punch lands with crushing force, shattering the floor and catching everyone off guard. His opponent stumbles back, overwhelmed by the weight behind what should have been a simple strike. Emerging through swirling energy, Astor radiates magic and confidence, defying expectations of a typical mage. Without delay, the wounded man casts healing magic, green light covering his injuries. Conflicted thoughts race through his mind. How could someone of noble lineage stoop to this? In contrast, Astor doesn't hesitate, unleashing a swift counterattack while assessing the situation. Bright circuits ignite in the air as another barrage of spells is prepared. Instead of retreating, Astor charges forward, overwhelming his foes with raw magical might. Grinning mid-battle, he watches them falter beneath relentless bursts of blue energy. A teammate restores health with laughter, golden energy pulsing from his hands. Rather than backing down, Astor relishes the tension, heart pounding with thrill. Terror creeps into the enemy's eyes as Astor closes in, unshaken. Voices from the sidelines erupt, commanding their fighter to act decisively. Praise flows, calling him the continent's pride and trusted warrior. Alone in the spotlight, he lowers his head, paralyzed by rising fear. Shock floods the man's face as he clenches his teeth, trying to suppress the rage. Roaring in disbelief, he denounces Astor for daring to defy him as a magician. Before he can recover, Astor's precise strike lands, disrupting his balance entirely. Fueled by anger, the man lunges forward with mana, infused fists and raw emotion. The powerful attack explodes around them, yet it hits nothing but enchanted space. Spectators cheer wildly, convinced the tide has turned in their champion's favor. Charging again, the opponent attempts to force Astor into a direct exchange. Momentum shifts instantly. Astor hurls him high, rendering the assault meaningless. Another fighter steps forward, silently preparing to reinforce his ally. A desperate scream breaks out as the first enemy charges recklessly once more. Calmly watching, Astor notes the repeated healing that keeps him standing. He realizes it will take a single decisive blow to end it. A surge of mana gathers in Astor's fist, pulsing with calculated force. Focused eyes reveal his intent. He'll finish this in one move. As the enemy closes in, Astor strikes with devastating collision style. Magic bursts across the hall, flinging a student backward as green energy violently erupts. Shock spreads across another boy's face, unable to comprehend the unfolding scene. Amid swirling particles, a lone figure stands firm, the floor cracking beneath his weight. Students watching from the sidelines begin clapping, excitement rising in their expressions. Zone of them confidently raises his hand, triggering a magical chain reaction. A clear voice echoes through the dust as he declares, "Cheers reaction destroy." Friends rush toward Astor with raised fists, celebrating what they believe is an overwhelming win. His posture remains composed, responding with only a nod while glancing at the crowd. Though smiling faintly, he quickly returns to silence, letting the cheers fade around him. From afar, a smug voice criticizes Astor's combat, calling it crude for a mage. The mood shifts sharply as a senior storms in, shouting orders with fury. Students scramble in confusion, unsure who will face the consequences. Fingers flail in every direction as blame, shifts desperately between students. Aster observes quietly, saying nothing as others speak over each other. Behind them, Damien lies battered, his eyes still locked on the chaos. The hall doors creaked open as Aster and Damien stood before the disciplinary officer, awaiting judgment. Instead of punishment, the instructor accepted their confession, noting the lack of serious injury in the incident. However, a senior student issued a stern warning to Aster, declaring intent to monitor him closely. A serene view of the academy's courtyard offered a brief moment of calm before the ceremony. Inside, Aster expressed relief that the official proceedings hadn't begun, giving them time to settle in. Around them, whispers circulated about Aster's unexpected combat prowess against a martial artist. Damien waved energetically, drawing unwanted attention from curious students across the hall. Spotting saved seats, the two approached with casual pride, grateful for their friend's initiative. While Damien celebrated the gesture, Aster kept his response brief, maintaining a composed demeanor. The headmaster began his speech with authority, reciting the academy's founding principles. He continued without pause, emphasizing core values and traditions upheld since its establishment. Aster silently admired his stamina, impressed by the lengthy address delivered without rest. Damien's focus faded, and he began to drift into sleep, mouth slightly open. Irritated, Aster glanced sideways as Damien drooled mid-ceremony, oblivious to his surroundings. Just then, an assistant approached Aster, announcing the headmaster's urgent summons. Leaning in close, the assistant delivered urgent news to the headmaster during his address. Without hesitation, he turned back to the students and announced a sudden interruption to his speech. His departure was swift, and in his place, a woman with striking red hair entered the hall. Striding forward confidently, she commanded the room's attention with a booming voice. Startled reactions spread through the students, including Damien and the upperclassmen who had glared earlier. Identifying herself as Jaira, she assumed leadership of the ceremony without pause. She began by naming the representative of the magic division. Gala de Dayan students, murmured as the girl stepped forward, her reputation clearly preceding her, praising her abilities. Jaira confirmed Gala's status as the top-ranked newcomer. Next, Dulia. Dayan was introduced as a future successor within the Dayan family. Despite her achievements, she had a reputation for being cold and difficult to approach. Aster, recalling past tension, still respected her talent and presence among the freshmen. Speculation grew when Aster's background remained unannounced during the introductions. Soon after, Jaira concluded the formalities and called for the professors to appear. Among them, one professor seemed to focus directly on Aster, locking eyes with quiet intensity. Rather than dwell on his unknown background, Aster dismissed the significance with a calm resolve. From the staircase, a sudden commotion erupted as someone stumbled violently down the steps. Damien recognized the figure immediately, Professor Perun, and wondered aloud about his delayed entrance. A shadow stretched across the floor as a tall man approached the stage with confident steps. Perun introduced himself as the instructor for the mobology course, his tone reserved and composed. Aster had expected someone more polished, but Perun's understated presence demanded its own kind of respect. Jaira brought the ceremony to an official close, marking the end of introductions. Students were instructed to follow guides to their assigned dormitories without delay. Standing among the dispersing crowd, Damien blinked in confusion, surprised it concluded so quickly. Aster leaned in, teasing Damien about being expelled for napping through the event. At first frozen in place, Damien processed the remark with visible panic. Only moments later did he erupt in an exaggerated scream that echoed through the hall. The golden light of sunset framed the academy's towering architecture as students relocated. Laughter trailed behind Aster while he strolled toward the dorms, still amused by Damien's outburst. Upon reaching the top floor, he paused in front of his door, ready to begin the next chapter. Aster examined the dorm room, impressed by the academy's well-prepared accommodations and organized layout. He discovered a neatly packed set of supplies, realizing that all students received identical items. While unpacking, he reflected that even basic belongings could reflect status, though customization would come later. A sudden knock interrupted him, revealing a roommate named Fallen, whose mood seemed tense. Aster noticed Fallen's irritated expression and tried to assess the cause of his attitude. Without interest in bonding, Fallen demanded silence and distance, leaving Aster wary of future tension. Curiosity filled the room as Aster stood quietly, drawing subtle attention from a nearby student. The student's voice broke the silence, pressing for a reply that never came from the calm Mage. Whispers about Aster's top-ranking status surfaced, sparking silent challenges and measuring glances from others. Frustration burst out as the student lashed forward, demanding an explanation for Astor's composure. Without reacting, Astor evaluated the stance before him. Sword posture, grip, even the spacing. He noted the careful movement, acknowledging it was decent but far from impressive. A smirk formed as Astor's roommate dismissed the situation, brushing it off casually. Shoulders relaxed. He walked away, unconcerned by the tension he left behind. Astor warned with a smirk any midnight noise wouldn't be met with kindness. Outside, a friendly voice echoed across the grounds, calling out with eager energy. They chatted about roommates and routines, one admitting he hadn't paid much attention. Talk shifted to touring the academy together. An exciting new start awaited. Bathed in golden light, the courtyard unveiled its grandeur to Astor's quiet gaze. He welcomed the walk, sensing the day's events had stirred something subtle. A vague disturbance brushed his awareness, less intense than before, yet undeniably present. Overhead, glowing towers shimmered against a dark sky as Declan's influence loomed in the distance. Poised above the rooftops, a mysterious figure cloaked in blue energy watched the city below. Rather than act impulsively, he prepared to assess the number of threats hiding in the shadows. Back at the academy, Astor and his friends continued their casual stroll through open stone paths. Expressions of amazement spread as they admired the sweeping sky and elegant buildings all around them. One boy lit up with excitement, pointing at the lake he had never seen in his hometown. Reflections danced across the lake's surface, capturing the fading hues of the evening sun. Astor observed in silence, sensing Lance had brought him here for reasons beyond a simple tour. His awareness heightened, something faint yet familiar stirred within the peaceful atmosphere. Meanwhile, inside a nearby building, a startled waitress reacted to an unsettling sensation she couldn't explain. Out by the rail, the boys playfully debated what to name the beautiful lake before them. After a short pause, one of them declared it should be called Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Their attention shifted again, this time drawn to a grand statue nearby. A suggestion came quickly: the next monument should take the form of a dragon's glittering scales. Chills ran down the waitress's spine as an unknown pressure crept quietly through the air. Once the academy tour ended, the boys casually suggested returning to their dorm. Instead of relaxing, Astor mentally reviewed his findings. 7 troubleshooters had been confirmed. He estimated a total of 10, their formation surrounding the second magic hall. That location matched Professor Rabin's laboratory, making it a strategic and symbolic target. Confirmation came easily. Declan's forces were clearly focused on someone with Rabin's influence. From nearby, cloaked figures observed silently, adjusting their movements to align with the professor's location. Darkness settled across the academy as the enemy began moving under cover of night, jumping swiftly between rooftops. They closed in without drawing attention. Momentum carried them toward their destination with precision and silence. Inside the hall, operatives advanced quickly but discovered no one present. Searches turned up signs of absence, though no signs of confrontation, despite the setback. They confirmed the professor's connection and refocused the mission. New intel revealed the target had already taken decisive action elsewhere. Realization spread: if orders were real, then Professor Rabin was the true objective. Plans shifted again, though frustration rose as top agents refused to intervene. Tension rose as one operative hesitated, sensing a shift in command structure. An unexpected name was mentioned: Callahan, the fire demon, would now be joining them. Shock followed instantly, as the name brought unease even among the experienced. Callahan, known as Declan's Red Jewel, embodied raw magical violence without restraint. His methods were brutal, often ignoring limits to accomplish missions. Realizing this, one operative feared they'd been sent on a suicide assignment. Despite the risk, the group pushed forward, believing the task still manageable. They exited the hall, hoping their mission wouldn't escalate into chaos, unbeknownst to them. Astor watched silently, already aware that Callahan was involved. Callahan stood as a formidable figure, already thriving in power, while others struggled for recognition. When House Deculon challenged the authority of House Blando, he remained unwavering through the chaos. Rather than fleeing during their downfall, he proved his loyalty by standing firm at their side. Despite his current threat, Callahan's true power flourished only after the brutal war ended. As Deculon's uncontested fire demon, he swept through battlefields with unrivaled destructive magic. His legacy as a war mage was etched into history through countless feats of devastation. Astor recognized the urgency. Callahan's grimoires contained forbidden knowledge too valuable to ignore. Among them was a high-grade artifact, rare and dangerous, worth the extreme risk. After eavesdropping, he grew suspicious. He had the paper, yet the enemy still expected a target. It became clear the enemy sought a fake document sent to mislead them. Without delay, Aster dressed, preparing himself for a likely confrontation. Moments later, he stepped into the night, determined and fully alert. A hooded figure slipped silently into the room, targeting the bed. Noticing something off, the intruder hesitated before taking action. Aster's eyes snapped open, ready and waiting. Light from the tower's windows spilled into the night, revealing someone still active inside. Behind a flickering candle, a man worked in silence, his posture steady and composed, calmly exhaling. He muttered resentment toward Deculon, calling them pests for crossing a line. Previously, he tolerated their movements, believing they stayed within limits. Now that they had dared to enter his domain, his patience reached its limit. A cloaked figure appeared before him, confirming the invasion was more than just rumor. One glance at the intruder revealed mercenary ties and something oddly familiar. Recognizing the figure as Pola, he addressed them directly, unimpressed by the disguise. He lectured on concealment, emphasizing that true infiltration required mastery of detail. An envelope landed on the desk, sealed tightly, its intent still unknown. Tension lingered, as Pola stayed silent, met only with a cold warning. Suspicion grew. This wasn't just a delivery, something larger was in motion. Without warning, an explosion shattered the calm, fire bursting through the walls. From the smoke, a man emerged confidently, greeting the professor by name. Calassian introduced himself boldly, mocking the professor's ignorance of the unfolding chaos. Callahan commented on the unexpected crowd, amused by the arrival of more participants. The professor appeared unfamiliar with Callahan, while the intruder remained focused on identifying intentions. Refusing to waste time, Aster stepped in and demanded clarity from the chaotic exchange. Amused by the boldness, Callahan laughed loudly, entertained by the unusual resistance. Rather than backing down, he declared Aster would be the first to fall. With cruel confidence, he decided the professor might survive, but only barely. Without hesitation, Aster raised a magic circle, countering the fiery assault. Explosions erupted mid-air as spells collided with destructive intensity. Caught in the aftermath, the professor was thrown aside by the force. Amid the wreckage, the professor ordered Pola to prioritize her own safety. Acknowledging the command, she responded with a simple nod. He quickly noticed the lack of alarms suspecting sabotage through concealment magic. The silent courtyard confirmed his suspicion. No warning systems had activated. His eyes narrowed as he evaluated whether Pola could truly be trusted. Realizing the document was from Blando, he began weighing his options carefully. Callahan grinned with anticipation as he prepared to unleash a devastating fiery spell. The explosion tore through the battlefield, leaving behind shattered terrain and rising smoke. Unharmed, the professor stood within protective barriers while Pola evaded the blast below. A powerful counterattack surged as blue magic erupted from a cloaked figure's spell circle. An immense beam struck downward, ripping through the ground with precision and force. Watching from a distance, Aster acknowledged the battle had officially begun. A mysterious individual landed nearby, their movements fast and deliberate under the moonlight. He slowly removed his hood, revealing a familiar face and intense blue eyes. This wasn't Aster, it was the top-ranked troubleshooter, ready to enter the conflict. Lightning streaked across the sky, tearing through the fortress as flames erupted violently in the distance. From the tower's edge, the cloaked figure, silently prepared, watching the chaos unfold beneath the moonlight. Activating a spell, he recalled his past. Justice was never his motive, only survival through power. Without hesitation, he descended like a meteor, crashing toward the heart of battle with lethal force. Below, a berserker engulfed in flames unleashed destruction, his manic laughter echoing through the burning ruins. Ducking behind rubble, the mage assessed the situation. His unexpected survival had shifted the odds slightly. A swift attack forced him back as the enemy carved through shields with terrifying precision. Magic clashed mid-air, energy bursting outward as spells collided and the battlefield shook under pressure. From a distance, the attacker gauged his strength, confident more force could still be applied. Noticing the sword's glow, he recognized enchantment, magic enhancing each strike. Though cornered, he refused to yield and committed fully to the clash ahead. Success wasn't guaranteed, but survival demanded risking everything. There was no retreat now. Explosions erupted as symbols flared, shaping the battlefield with relentless energy. He dodged searing flames and countered with a precise spell circle of his own. No longer willing to be controlled, he stood firm this time. He'd fight on his terms. Faced with rising tension, he calculated his next step. Hesitation now would cost him everything. Across the field, flames erupted as the red, Haired warrior unleashed overwhelming magical force. Mana thinned rapidly, triggering a control struggle between both sides as they fought for dominance. Lightning and fire swirled violently as magical energies tore through the battlefield in waves. His opponent charged forward, ignoring defense, aiming to crush the stalemate through sheer aggression. A brilliant explosion followed, engulfing the area in blinding light as the two forces clashed. Both combatants launched upward, clashing midair, neither willing to yield even an inch, watching from a distance. Another mage muttered in disbelief. He was surrounded by monsters. Retreat seemed the only option, as any interference would end in certain death. A towering lightning storm spiraled into the sky, warping the night with its presence. Nearby allies shielded their eyes, stunned by the raw intensity of the unfolding battle, caught in the aftermath. One figure was lifted into the sky without warning. From behind cover, a cloaked youth realized too late they had walked into an ambush. An explosion rocked the area as spells detonated in every direction, scattering fighters instantly. Through smoke and chaos, two enemies advanced, prepared to finish what had begun. Piercing eyes glowed beneath the hood as the mage descended onto the shattered battlefield. Confusion spread instantly. His sudden appearance left enemies speechless, halting their movement mid-fight. Turning in disbelief, the red-haired warrior demanded answers, his temper rising with each breath. Lightning surged as the cloaked figure attacked, driving his weapon straight through magical defenses. Terror replaced arrogance. The warrior realized he was seconds from death. Close enough to see the threat clearly, he braced himself for the final blow. An explosive clash forced him backward, limbs flailing as he hit the ground hard. With blood spilling from his lips, he cursed the violent mana backlash. Each step away grew heavier as instability within his body worsened. New opponents crashed down from above, further complicating the already chaotic fight. Instead of retaliating, he focused on suppressing the violent mana surging inside. Doubt crept in. Where had this kind of mage come from? A separate skirmish erupted as the cloaked figure descended into another conflict zone. Watching from afar, the injured man struggled to process the shifting momentum. Gripping his weapon again, he vowed not to fall without resistance. A massive fire beam shot from the sky, tearing through the air toward the ground. Blazing energy spiraled rapidly, forming a concentrated core of destruction above the battlefield. Lone Man stood at the center, his gaze locked on the incoming blast as it detonated. Callahan unleashed a blazing surge of magic, his hand outstretched toward the smoky battlefield. Thoughts of casualties briefly crossed his mind, but the lives of other troubleshooters meant nothing to him. For him, the mission outweighed everything. The masked figure had to be removed at all costs. A flicker of self-awareness surfaced as he acknowledged the rare excitement clouding his judgment. He dropped a tool onto the ground, a clear signal that he was far from finished. From the beginning, he suspected betrayal. The masked one never intended to cooperate with his squad. Without hesitation, Aster conjured a complex magic circle, its glow illuminating the ground beneath him. A sudden burst of energy propelled forward, slicing through the air like a spear of light. Callahan's eyes widened. His opponent's speed was beyond anything he'd anticipated. The magical strike tore through the sky and collided with Callahan's head in a direct hit. He turned slightly, perhaps sensing danger too late. His body tense with realization. Blood sprayed as the blow landed, leaving his expression locked in stunned silence. Aster stood over the fallen enemy, unwavering and composed. Callahan's strength had been formidable, but it wasn't enough to change the outcome. Even with a powerful final spell, he lacked the depth to endure. Standing over Callahan's body, Aster scanned the area, ensuring no threats remained. He crouched beside the corpse and swiftly searched the coat for concealed artifacts. A hidden locket surfaced, something most combat mages kept close, laced with defensive spells. With his search complete, Aster shifted his attention as a presence approached from the distance. Professor Pollen entered the clearing, his gaze locked onto Aster's mask with cold calculation. Magic flared in Pollen's hand, clearly ready for conflict should things go wrong. Rather than attack, Pollen acknowledged the fall of one of Declan's top enforcers. He speculated about Aster's identity, connecting him to recent disruptions and underground rumors. Questions surfaced regarding a mysterious messenger who had deceived him earlier. Pollen theorized the impostor was bait, meant to flush out hidden adversaries. He suspected Henzy's hand in the scheme, aiming to weaken Declan's hold, despite the chaos. The night's delay hinted at deeper political interference. Concluding the exchange, Pollen implied the Declans had manipulated official response. Aster handed over the thesis without hesitation, confirming his role. Paulin examined it and calmly asked if Aster understood the weight it carried. Aster questioned Paulin's knowledge of certain individuals, challenging his assumptions with composed certainty. Unwilling to lose a useful connection, Paulin hesitated before agreeing to accept the thesis temporarily. Before leaving, he asked Aster if there was anything he wanted in return. Henzi's way of rewarding ambition was well known. He aligned only with those sharing clear goals. Rather than gold or power, Aster requested a simple contribution, a book. He shared his vision of a towering library filled with magical knowledge open to all. Though skeptical at first, Paulin admitted that writing a book might not be a bad idea. A hint of amusement crossed his face as he found the concept unexpectedly enjoyable. Just as the mood lightened, Aster dismissed, giving contact info with sarcastic detachment. Instead of phone numbers, he handed over a linked communication crystal for emergencies. By breaking one, the other would signal instantly, no words needed. Though awkward, Paulin accepted it, blushing slightly, as Aster walked off into the night. Feeling vaguely uncomfortable, Paulin muttered to himself about the strange encounter. Soon after, the Imperial Knights arrived and began locking down the area. With urgency, they evacuated the academy students, fearing a second wave of attacks. Using the evacuation as cover, Aster slipped into the student crowd without raising suspicion. Summonon recognized him mid-blend, prompting a casual interaction to maintain his cover. He dismissed the concern with a vague excuse, careful not to reveal his true role. His mind drifted back to the peculiar magic used during the earlier confrontation. While powerful, the explosion carried a distortion signature linked to forbidden research. A method once theorized by Aether Alusha resurfaced in his memory, rare, but not impossible. Still confused, he decided to investigate further, starting with the Academy's hidden archives. Lapider Library stood quietly under moonlight, holding records untouched by most students. He believed the answer to the anomaly might lie within its vast collection. Before entering, a new student suddenly approached and addressed him by name. Aster hesitated, unsure if the stranger had seen too much during the battle. Realizing the threat to his identity, he questioned whether the newcomer could be silenced. Rather than boast, Aster brushes off his skills with a grin, disguising his experience as modesty. He acknowledges the title without denial, confidence clear in his expression. The evening stroll resumes as both students blend into the quiet flow of the academy grounds. His companion admits feeling isolated, lacking close bonds in a place filled with unfamiliar faces. Aster observes quietly, aware of how difficult it is to connect within the Academy's rigid structure. Despite the welcoming appearance, hidden divisions still push people like them to the outskirts. Understanding the reality, Aster accepts the truth behind those words. Unlike others, his social interactions were born from necessity, not comfort. Haunting memories of chaos and violence flash through his mind, buried beneath his calm demeanor. Sunlight drenches the academy towers, signaling the beginning of a new day. Students gradually fill the lecture hall, settling into quiet anticipation. A voice rises, marking the official start of the session. Leaning on his desk, Damien mumbles complaints about exhaustion. A cheerful greeting cuts through the tension as a classmate waves at them, shrugging. Aster admits school continues no matter yesterday's chaos. While Damien speculates about rumors, Aster quietly observes, choosing not to comment. Changing the topic, Damien mentions a name, Zira. Trying to recall if Aster has heard of her, attention shifts as Zira appears, her striking presence immediately capturing the class's focus. With calm authority, Zira addresses the class and dismisses yesterday's disruption as minor. She quickly redirects focus, announcing that everyone's mana will be tested before class begins. Instead of explaining, she challenges the students with a direct question about mana's true value. The girl named Arzin stands when called, slightly startled but composed. She reasons that quality surpasses quantity once a stable mana level is achieved. By using a battle scenario, Arzin illustrates how better mana quality gives the upper hand. Aster nods subtly, acknowledging the logic in her explanation. Zira presses further, inquiring about Arzin's noble background. Hesitantly, Arzin reveals her house marquis of Parain. A low sigh escapes Zira, her expression darkening with recognition. Across the room, Arzin tenses under the weight of judgment. Silence falls as no student volunteers to answer Zera's next question. Zera calls on another student, misnaming him at first, prompting a nervous correction. Ale argues that quantity matters more, citing that larger mana pools offer stronger spells. Meanwhile, Aster quietly analyzes the flawed logic, noting how power without control can be meaningless. Without pause, Zera questions each student, but ignores their house backgrounds when answers don't impress her. Some students attempt thoughtful replies, while others mutter vague phrases like desperation or casting speed. From his seat, Aster silently wonders which response caused the tension hanging over the classroom. Eventually, Zara cuts off the discussion, announcing that she's heard enough. Though many answers seemed close, she clarifies there was never a single correct one. Her challenge wasn't about facts, it was about whether students spoke their own truth. She emphasizes that a true mage must never lose objectivity, regardless of external pressure. The classroom sits in silence as her words resonate with each student. Declaring the lesson's end, Zara tells them to engrave this mindset in their hearts. As students prepare, Aster reflects that his instincts were right all along. Zara instructs them to come forward one by one for mana testing. Nervously, Arzin responds when her name is called, ready for the next step. Zara acknowledges Arzin and names her as the representative of Class A due to her answer. Grateful yet flustered, Arzin steps down, while the others watch her with mixed reactions. Aster observes her excitement, while Damien voices envy, unsure of what exactly he envies. Zara reveals a rare mana measurement device, surprising the students with its appearance. As the orb activates, its glow draws attention, sparking awe and curiosity. She hints that even with such tools, predicting true potential isn't always possible. As testing begins, whispers spread someone might possess terrifying strength. The orb reveals an overwhelming mana level, causing a stir among the onlookers. Damien, expression calm and finger to lips, hides his true power from the others. An instructor calmly explains the artifact's purpose, measuring each student's magical potential through mana output. With focused steps, Arzin approaches the glowing sphere, prepared to demonstrate her abilities. The moment her hand touches the orb, magical energy erupts, swirling with brilliant intensity. Blue light fills the chamber as the device responds, revealing Arzin's exceptional refinement level. According to the instructor, her mana ranks far above standard, reaching an impressive level, 17. Arzin receives praise from the instructor, while classmates observe the result with awe and curiosity. Her growth surprises no one. The instructor remarks on the quality and depth of Arzin's mana. Stunned by the compliment, Arzin blushes slightly, while nearby students whisper among themselves. As the instructor exits, the atmosphere shifts. Students turn their attention toward their own evaluations. Two boys discuss their readiness, one adjusting his stance to focus his breathing. Aster steps up next, placing his hand firmly onto the glowing orb. A sudden flash shocks the room as the device reacts with overwhelming force. Displayed first is Aster's refinement level, a solid 6 out of 20. Next, his mana capacity stuns everyone, an incredible level 20, drawing murmurs of envy. He quietly states his name, Aster. Whispers follow his surname matches a noble house. Stepping away from the orb, Furion calmly finishes his test, as observers continue murmuring about results. Rather than dismissing Aster, he notes the possibility of someone surpassing him in refinement one day. From the side, Aster quietly acknowledges the comment, hiding his true background behind a neutral response. Students glance across the hall when a silver-haired boy is whispered to be the Blando heir. Among the crowd, no one seems to recognize Aster standing quietly at the front of the line. His thoughts, race being noticed now could jeopardize the life he is trying to reshape from the shadows. The assistant professor eagerly offers to test Damien, intrigued by his noble status. Without hesitation, Damien walks forward and prepares to channel his mana into the testing orb. Bright energy bursts outward as the measurement begins, drawing every student's attention toward the stage. Refinement level 9 and mana capacity 67 appear, shocking even the instructor with their rarity. Gasps fill the room. One student recoils, labeling Damien's result something beyond normal comprehension. Aster remains still, realizing Damien's natural power forms an insurmountable wall for most. Inwardly, Aster reflects on Damien's past life, when his unmatched talent shifted the balance of power. This time he resolves to help Damien reach even greater heights, but with control and purpose. While praised by faculty, Damien receives a reminder. Strength alone doesn't define a true mage. Damien eagerly suggests Aster take his measurement, curious about his actual capabilities. Considering the attention, Aster reflects on how his unknown background fuels the student's interest. Among the crowd, whispers grow. He's a commoner who once defeated a noble family's second son. Accepting the request, Aster approaches the orb and prepares to measure his mana. To avoid suspicion, he plans to release only a portion of his total strength. As his hand glows, he realizes something's off. The device's sensitivity was set unusually low. The orb rapidly rises in brightness, responding far more than he intended. Displayed numbers surpass expectations. Refinement, level 10, triggering alarm and visual distortion. Suddenly, the orb displays an error: mana overflow, limit exceeded, request to reset baseline. Excited by the spectacle, Damien celebrates Aster's amazing reading without hesitation. Nearby instructors debate remeasuring, though one claims the result seems accurate. Another voice cuts through harshly, insisting everyone stop talking. It's clearly a mistake. The orb is reset, and Aster calmly agrees to repeat the process. With greater control, he reveals a safe result: Refinement 3, Capacity 15, Relieved. Aster reflects balancing output precisely is harder than it seems. Aster freezes when Damien repeats a word he unintentionally taught him, drawing attention with surprise. Turning around, Aster sees Damien justify his use of the word with innocent logic. Regret settles in quickly. Aster realizes he must be more cautious with his influence going forward. As evening sets in, the sun casts golden light over the first magic hall's structure. Professor Violetta gazes outward, reflecting briefly on the earlier mana measurements from the day. She tries to dismiss curiosity, convincing herself it's not her concern who exceeded expectations. A student rushes in, handing her Aster's test report, prompting her to examine it. She flips through the pages until one entry suddenly catches her sharp, focused eyes. Seeing Aster's profile and chart, she immediately recognizes the unexpected potential behind his readings. The error code confirms that Aster surpassed the mana threshold set by the device's limits. Determined, Violetta decides she must observe Aster more closely from now on. Meanwhile, the boys joke around again, while Aster regrets ever saying anything questionable aloud. Blue light surged through the air as a dragon-shaped mana construct emerged from Aster's magic. Its immense form coiled above, radiating power, while crackling arcs of energy danced across the space. Damien observed closely, his eyes scanning the results before giving an approving response. Inside the academy, several students gathered around a table, engaged in a discussion about magic. One confidently displayed a glowing artifact, while others reacted with interest or light-hearted comments. Meanwhile, Aster stayed silent, studying each person's magical control with quiet scrutiny. Beaming with joy, a classmate shared his gratitude for the academy's welcoming environment. His words caused Aster to pause, reminded of his own long, difficult path. In response, Aster offered a faint smile, acknowledging the boy's sincerity. Later that night, Aster approached a hidden corner of the academy with a sealed pouch in hand. The magical lock was complex, but weeks of effort had finally yielded results. Although slower without proper tools, he dismantled the enchantment alone in secret. Memories of retrieving the pouch during a past encounter briefly resurfaced. A surge of energy activated the seal, revealing its long, hidden contents. He peered inside, pulling out a mysterious potion, its purpose still unknown. Lifting the cloak, Aster quickly decided it wasn't suitable for his current needs. A small metallic ring with braided cords caught his attention beneath the discarded fabric. Activating it released a protective field, prompting him to assess its power with interest. From a hidden compartment nearby, he retrieved a worn book sealed with magic. The emblem on the cover confirmed its identity: Deculan's secret grimoire. Instead of opening it hastily, Aster chose to observe and plan his next move. Crowds gathered in the plaza, buzzing with anticipation for the trial ahead. Speculation filled the air as students debated which challenges they might face. One voiced concern, hinting the difficulty would surpass previous academy events. Briefings revealed 3 options: a sewer maze demanding precision and memory. Another was a mountain sprint, pure speed and instinct would prevail. Lastly, the combat simulator tested reflexes against enemies, both human and monstrous. All conversation stopped the moment an instructor stepped forward. Her silence commanded attention even before she spoke. Instructions were delivered clearly, marking the official start of the trials. With the stage set, the instructor began assigning students their trials based on magic compatibility. One student was startled after being chosen for the trial of the ordeal, a daunting path. As murmurs rose among the crowd, the instructor quickly commanded silence and gave further orders. Raising his hand, the examiner explained the task: reach the final gate using any route. A magical map projected the sewer maze, hinting at the complexity of the challenge ahead. Although the destination was the same for all, how they got there would vary drastically. Without warning, a glowing golem emerged, massive, mechanical, and clearly hostile. Confusion spread among the students, many unsure if this was part of the exam. The instructor confirmed it was intentional, stating only skilled mages could bypass such threats. Despite reassurance, some students exchanged anxious glances, aware of how difficult the narrow paths could be. Instructors watching from afar discussed past failures and the pressure of confined encounters. Won recalled a cloaked student who barely passed the terrain, not monsters, had pushed her to the limit. Among the crowd, elite students quietly observed, each confident in their own abilities. Their silence was broken by a stern command, returning full focus to the exam start. Everyone braced themselves as tension filled the air. The trial was about to begin. The instructor explained that golems would serve as obstacles along the maze path, guarding key routes. Each student was issued a bracelet that generated a protective barrier functioning, like a force field. Should the barrier break, the student would be removed from the trial, and the golems would disengage. He then challenged the students to go beyond expectations, offering a personal reward for excellence. It wasn't about speed. Taking down enemies or showing tactical skill would earn recognition. Hearing this, Astor's focus sharpened, fully committed to standing out in the upcoming test. Years ago, Astor had walked these grounds with naivety. Now he returned with purpose. The towering library stood unchanged, but he viewed it through eyes sharpened by regression. Without drawing attention, he surveyed the exam preparations, internalizing every detail of the process. With the briefing concluded, students scattered to collect equipment from their assigned instructors. While chaos erupted around him, Astor calmly assessed who acted out of panic. Rather than rushing, he relied on the map etched in memory to plan ahead. Requests flew wildly: bomb flowers, ignition stones, golem controllers, all denied by the overwhelmed assistants. Among them, Damien stood out, confidently requesting vine seeds, despite lacking plant affinity. His successful spellcasting drew attention, proving that ingenuity trumped elemental alignment. Astor remained silent, noting Damien's creative use of resources without formal approval. Doubt surfaced how many others would innovate rather than follow rigid magic systems. Once, the examiner summoned them to confirm their maze starting locations. A large golden display revealed the labyrinth layout and individual entry points. After finding his position, Astor scanned for familiar names nearby. Separated from allies, he braced for a test where survival meant thinking alone. Astor was confronted by a confident student who called him out by name. With arms crossed and followers at his back, the student introduced himself as Devay. Instead of threats, he extended an offer: buying bracelets from disqualified participants. 30 gold per bracelet, Devay explained, targeting 3 others in the upcoming test. To Astor, the reward seemed excessive for something so straightforward. Adding insult, Devay reminded him of his origins in the slums. Behind Devay, small explosions served as a warning from his group. Unfazed, Astor questioned the logic of the plan with a raised hand. Rather than decline, he raised the price 40 per HED. In his mind, Astor compared the scheme to predatory lending. He recalculated the deal, turning Devay's pressure back against him. His boldness left the group confused, unsure if he was serious. Devay attempted to walk away, cutting off the deal, calling him out. Astor argued passengers still paid their share. With a sly grin, he demanded 120 gold. Seizing the upper hand, one of Devay's subordinates erupted in rage, shouting slurs at Astor's background. Unable to contain his fury, the student attempted to attack, invoking noble pride. Devay stopped him cold, warning against making the situation worse. Reluctantly, Devay agreed to pay, tossing over the full amount Astor demanded. The gold clinked in Astor's hand, confirming he'd flipped the power dynamic. With the deal done, Devay promised to prove Astor wasn't worth the cost. Above the testing ground, the sky remained clear as the exam rules were repeated. A magical seal activated, signaling the moment the evaluation officially began. Students listened carefully, especially the warning about injury, free eliminations via force field failures. The reminder, echoed bracelet shield break, meant instant disqualification. Conditions were strict, only direct magical hits or mana-based attacks could trigger it. Regardless of skill, every participant faced the same limitations and consequences. Eyes narrowed, Astor focused on the challenge ahead, scanning his surroundings. Nearby competitors glanced warily at one another, tension quietly building. At last, the proctor gave the signal. The exam had officially begun. Astor and the others were warped into the exam maze, surrounded by blue barriers. Observers monitored their screens, confirming system integrity as the test officially commenced. Unexpected anomalies caused confusion among examiners, particularly regarding one participant's status. Despite technical checks, the system showed interference linked to starting point 3. Realizing Astor was the cause, panic spread as his aura distorted the environment. The examiner added a penalty charge, emphasizing Astor's defiance and unexpected magical pressure. The duel begins under a clear sky as a magical barrier is activated to ensure safety. Aster stands confidently inside the arena, protected by a force field that nullifies all external interference. Once the barrier is confirmed, the instructor announces the start of the battle, signaling both sides to proceed. All participants activate their magical wards in synchronized formation, preparing their spells with intense focus. One student triggers his magic array, launching a series of magical attacks infused with elemental energy. Aster watches calmly as the opponent charges. Magic from multiple directions begins to converge on him. A confident student mocks Aster, unleashing a massive fireball straight toward him, in a show of power, without flinching. Aster sidesteps the flames and counters with swift movement and clean, focused strikes. Using his blade and reflexes, he neutralizes attacks with precise motion, avoiding wasteful energy usage. Aster weaves through enemy spells, closing distance without letting them complete their casting animations. He uses a mix of physical counters and quick magical bursts to disable multiple opponents efficiently. One by one, the enemies fall. His seamless movement leaves no chance for retaliation. Aster finishes with a brutal knockback, sending his final opponent flying across the arena floor. Surveying the aftermath, he reminds the students that recklessness comes at a cost. With a deadpan tone, he demands gold for damages and promises salary deductions for each hit taken. The air settles as a defeated student groans, barely lifting himself after the overwhelming clash. Grinding his teeth, he throws a threat, his pride wounded more than his body. Without letting him finish, Aster lands a precise blow, silencing him instantly. Tossing a quick glance, Aster estimates the cost 10 gold, based on the number of hits. Controlling his strength had been difficult without Damien's assistance, but he managed. He pockets the 6th bracelet, asserting his role as the victim in this staged assault. Thoughts race as he assesses potential escape strategies while catching his breath. Destroying the hall briefly crosses his mind, but risks destabilizing its structure. With a grimace, he shakes off the idea, aware it could endanger the region. Deciding to pause, Aster leans back, hands behind his head. His attention shifts. He wonders how the others are surviving the ordeal. Elsewhere, panic erupts as classmates beg their team leader for guidance. A colossal guardian looms, prompting frantic cries for mercy. It launches a blazing attack, ignoring their pleas. In disarray, the students scatter, fear overwhelming reason. Trying to rally the group, a nervous student pleads for peace, wanting only to pass the test. Despite his words, teammates argue and hesitate, each suspicious of betrayal in the chaotic environment. Tension rises as one student loses patience, forcing the others to move under pressure. Breaking into a sprint, one of the students decides to take his chances alone. Greed tempts him, but he convinces himself passing is more important than collecting more bracelets. His pace quickens until something unexpected causes him to stop in confusion. His bracelet malfunctions, triggering panic as it signals elimination. He sits down in defeat, expecting to be teleported out, but nothing happens. A mysterious voice speaks directly to him, disrupting the expected process. From the shadows, a broadcast reaches every student, delivered by a hostile figure. Their purpose is clear: this attack targets the academy for reasons yet unexplained. They declare no demands, only punishment for those who disrespected something called the Great One. The message continues with chilling intent: no student will leave alive. Panic spreads as return spells are disabled, and despair begins to set in. Instructors react quickly, ordering defenses while dark forces mobilize to carry out the threat. Cracks spread across the dungeon walls as a deep tremor signals the approach of something unnatural. Aster observes the emergence of a mechanical creature, its body sparking with unstable energy. Multiple red-eyed constructs rise behind it, surrounding him completely as he assesses the overwhelming threat. Aster darted through the chaos, his blade slicing cleanly through the first charging golem with precision. Without pause, he pivoted, unleashing an arc of cold energy that sent shards through another target. Despite being constructs, the golems moved unnaturally fast, something that shouldn't have been possible for their size. Nearly 10 minutes had elapsed since the trial began. From every direction they converged with uncanny accuracy, tracking Aster's position as if guided by instinct. Resolving to push back, he summoned raw mana into his fist, determined to eliminate them all. Elsewhere, a panicked student stumbled through the corridor. Dread settled in as he muttered regrets, convinced his defeat was only seconds away. But then, echoing footsteps reached him. He wasn't alone in this trial after all. The boy's eyes widened upon seeing Aster, who immediately signaled him to retreat. Behind them, golems surged forward, claws tearing at the floor as they gave chase. While the student fled, Aster remained behind, casting defensive magic to halt the relentless advance. Aster quickly requested the bracelet, knowing it held more accurate directional magic than his own. Analyzing the signal, he planned a path to safety that prioritized survival for the others. Instead of escaping, he stayed back, urging the student to search for allies still alive. Sweat clung to his brow as Chenbi questioned if trusting Aster was the right decision. Without slowing down, he pushed forward through the dark corridor, unsure where it would lead. Aster's focus never wavered. He had one objective: reach Damon, no matter the cost. Images of home surfaced, his parents' gentle smiles and the warmth of a simple life. Regret tightened his chest as he recalled how his sister's dreams were buried under hardship. This time, he wouldn't run. Their stolen peace had to be reclaimed through his own strength. He paused briefly, questioning whether someone like him deserved to fight alongside the strong. But memories of failure only fueled his resolve, sparking a fire deep within. Refusing to be sidelined, he charged ahead with renewed purpose. Golden light erupted around him, his magic surging like a storm about to break. Each movement carved space between him and the enemies, buying precious seconds. From the shadows, a mysterious observer watched his power unfold. Energy concentrated into his spell circle, trembling with the force of his will. With perfect timing, Spear of the Earth launched forward, tearing through stone and steel. A voice shouted his name, shocked, fearful, and in awe of what Aster had become. Blinding light erupted as Aster's spell surged forward, tearing through the corridor like a golden spear. The golem stood no chance, shattered instantly by the force that engulfed everything in its path. Hidden in the distance, a mysterious figure observed the scene without interfering. Chenbi staggered, blood dripping from his mouth as his opponent's power overwhelmed him. The enemy advanced, cloaked in unstable magic, far beyond Chenbi's ability to counter. Before he collapsed completely, Aster rushed in, catching him just in time. Cradling him carefully, Aster spoke his name, checking the extent of his wounds. With a faint smile, Chenbi recalled learning Spear of the Earth from a former master, though joking about the name. Both knew its meaning had weight. Aster reminded him that a spell's true value comes from the caster's resolve. Reassured, Chenbi uttered Aster's name with gratitude as his vision steadied. Across from them, an unconscious foe still lingered, presenting a dilemma. A magical scan revealed the maze's layout and possible hidden threats. Though he couldn't carry Chenbi, abandoning him wasn't an option either. More remained to be done, and Aster knew time was running out. Aster sprinted through the corridor, each footstep echoing through the stone passage like a warning. His instincts flared. This aura didn't belong to Declan, reeked of something far more terrifying. As he turned the corner, recognition struck. His expression tightened as dread settled deep in his gut. At the hallway's end, a swirling demonic gate pulsed, distorting reality with its dark power. A figure emerged beyond it, Frizen grinning as he bathed in the corruption of the realm. Demons scurried within the portal's depths while Frizen, fully possessed, declared the summoning complete. Elsewhere, a mad sorcerer activated an artifact, causing a colossal demonic crystal to ignite with power. He reveled in success, proclaiming that the demonic realm's anchor was finally stabilized. Holding up his gloved hand, he admired the artifact responsible for maintaining the portal's control. Mocking his masked partner, the mage claimed credit for generating stable demonic energy. His ally remained indifferent, concerned only with House Femar's growing influence. No opposition remained. Together, they would ensure no one dared defy their authority. The mage sneered, dismissing his vassal status as temporary in the grand scheme. Dreams of a private laboratory drove him to tolerate Vimar's dominance. With the forbidden sex goal achieved, he awaited the recognition promised by their pact. Standing near the core, the silver-haired mage boasted about his flawless control over the system. He leaned in, voice filled with anticipation, as he spoke of a deeper, darker experiment. At last, he revealed his ambition, combining demonic energy with humans through beastification. Across the screen, a demonic creature closed in on Aster, within a sealed chamber. All escape paths had vanished, forcing him into a confrontation inside the glowing grid, rather than panic. Aster welcomed the challenge, confident and calm as he faced forward. A faint smile crept onto his lips as he mouthed a message to his target. Hearing his name called from within the realm, Frizen's composure faltered in surprise. Meanwhile, the masked ally asked about the boy's identity, clearly unsettled. Frizen narrowed his eyes, unable to grasp how this stranger knew him. Recognition sparked when he spotted the test bracelet on Aster's wrist. Alarm rose in his voice as a dreadful possibility took hold. Without warning, the beasts lunged, but Aster moved swiftly in response. Brilliant bursts of blue energy erupted, striking down each attacker with deadly precision. He remained standing, unshaken. His counterattack had only just begun. Beasts charged across the battlefield, their rage now redirected toward one another. With a cold command, Aster ordered them to fight, triggering chaos within their ranks. Frezin shrieked in disbelief as he watched his precious creations tear each other apart, monitoring the screen. The cultists stared in shock at Aster's blinding speed. Panic gripped Frezin as he shouted orders, desperately trying to halt the unstoppable advance. Every second widened the gap. The barrier couldn't contain the force crashing through it. From above, Aster descended like a blade of blue energy, splitting the battlefield. The masked man calmly addressed Frezin, revealing a long-buried connection. No longer separated by layers of control, Aster met his enemy face to face. Demian greeted another student awkwardly, his smile strained beneath nervous energy. Summoning 3 massive golems, he introduced them as Cerebus Units 1, 2, and 3. Though clearly out of his depth, he feigned confidence behind his mechanical guards. A new voice called out, demanding answers about how she arrived unharmed. She pointed out the bracelet on his arm, the key to their exposure. Realization dawned, and he quickly urged everyone to discard the trackers. One student doubted the warning, refusing to believe the bracelets posed a threat in an exam hall. Suspicion rose when another noticed their intent, pointing out the gathering of multiple bracelets. Accusation turned serious as the group questioned their motives, leaving the boy stunned and speechless. One student stood alone before the group, accusing them of planning to collect everyone's bracelets. His expression was serious, sensing danger beneath their intentions. The others hesitated, caught off guard by his confidence. He explained that the bracelets were not ordinary items, but part of a control system. They served as tracking devices, linking everyone's location to the overseers monitoring the test from behind the scenes. The lead student scoffed at the revelation, surprised that he knew such a detail. When told the information came from Aster, a shadow of realization crossed his face. A distant voice echoed, mocking the truth. The smug student laughed, reminding everyone how the speaker had once been tricked by a vagrant. That mistake had cost him his bracelet before, and now he dared to question others' motives. He accused the boy of acting desperate. Failing once already, the student was allegedly trying to manipulate others to escape another failure. A growing murmur of doubt spread among the onlookers. Turning to the crowd, he called out their own mistakes, saying even the attentive had fallen to deception. The speaker trembled under the accusations, but a flicker of memory in his eyes pushed back the shame. He remembered the first time he met Aster. Chaos had surrounded them, enemies looming in the distance. Aster had stepped forward with calm determination while others panicked. The memory played clearly. He had asked Aster what he possessed to face such danger. It was an honest question from someone seeking strength in the middle of fear and doubt. Without pause, Aster gave his answer. There was no hesitation, no pride. Just a simple truth that carried more weight than any weapon. Aster had answered, "I have one friend," valuing that bond above any artifact or strategy. That single belief gave him unwavering resolve. In the present, Aster tossed aside a ring. He didn't need it and offered it freely. His actions rejected material gain, focused only on loyalty and trust. He turned with a confident smile, calling out to his ally, Chenbi. Together, they walked forward, leaving the others silent and shaken. Suddenly, a portal tore open and a dark presence emerged. The stranger greeted one student like an old enemy, eyes burning with familiarity. He claimed to have once chased the student through the demonic realm. His arrival brought a terrifying new threat none had expected during the exam. The accused student panicked, denying everything, while his companion stepped back in fear. Their plan was broken, and the real danger had just begun. The masked figure questioned the boy's claim of ignorance, casting doubt over whether this was truly their first meeting. Suspicion lingered heavily in the air as tension grew between them. Though the boy insisted he didn't know the attacker, the masked man accepted the answer reluctantly. Resigned to the situation, he prepared for what he described as an unavoidable duty. Bound by a magical contract, the cloaked man revealed his chained arm and raised his weapon. Despite reluctance, he had no freedom to choose. Forced to act by powers beyond his will, he announced that he would eliminate the target, following the orders dictated through the cursed chains. His movement signaled that there would be no holding back. Another student began to realize the truth. He recognized the man's style, matching the feared enforcer of a dangerous cult. The symbols and the hound insignia confirmed his suspicions. This was no ordinary assassin, but a servant of a dark sect, bound to hunt without mercy or reason. The question arose, why would someone of such power serve a seemingly insignificant enemy? The student couldn't understand the connection. The masked warrior scoffed at the ignorance. The boy had no idea who they truly were dealing with, or what secrets were buried in their past. The student's frustration boiled over. He demanded to know why a deadly enforcer like this would ally with someone so beneath notice. His confusion deepened as fear set in. Emotions reached a breaking point. The student screamed, unable to accept the logic of the situation. The contract assassin remained silent, gripping his weapon tighter. Without warning, he lunged forward, chains rattling as he accelerated with inhuman speed. The student barely reacted in time. The ground cracked beneath the enforcer's momentum. He moved like a beast, attacking with devastating power and precision, unshaken by the chaos erupting around him. Another student yelled for answers, still stunned that such a feared figure had allied with their enemy. Questions drowned beneath the battle's noise. The masked man formed a magical seal mid-stride. Blue runes flared as his chains extended like living weapons, targeting everyone nearby. Blades formed from the spell's energy flew through the air. The clash of power echoed as students scattered, realizing too late that this battle was beyond their control. Tension erupted as a student shouted in panic, trying to understand why Vimar's hound was present. His confusion turned to fear as the assassin charged with lethal precision. The masked attacker's movements blurred with speed, closing in before any counterattack could form. His target, unable to fully grasp the threat, relied on basic defenses. Magic-enhanced chains lashed through the air as the enemy advanced. The defender had little time to respond, barely forming a barrier as the hound descended. The assassin's expression remained unreadable behind the mask. His opponent was losing control, blinded by emotion and pressure. Chains crashed into defensive spells. The targeted student was thrown back, overwhelmed by the relentless attacks and magical force. A sudden strike landed. Blood spilled. The masked man stepped forward again, determined to complete the mission. The battlefield shifted in his favor. The battle's momentum changed. The student fighting back grew increasingly furious, aware he was being treated like a helpless creature. Their fight intensified, one attacked with raw power, the other with discipline and control. Dust and energy filled the hall. Another student tried to intervene, shouting commands, but the hound answered only to the contract. His blows were deliberate. He named his target Declan's dog. Explosive magic collided between them. Blue light flooded the corridor as spells clashed violently. The shockwave echoed beyond the chamber. The masked man staggered for the first time, while his opponent gasped from exhaustion. Both were bloodied, locked in a fight beyond their peers. Frizen observed from afar, calm and untouched. He criticized the chaos, noting how others still fought behind stronger individuals. One student screamed in agony as his arm was torn open in a sudden strike. Blood sprayed across the floor. He clutched the wound, barely standing. The hound stood nearby, unrelenting, while Frizen casually watched the suffering unfold. When questioned about his next move, Frizen dismissed the urgency. He chose to wait, confident in the outcome. With amusement, he stepped aside and told the others to enjoy the show. Frizen stared directly at his shaken opponent, delivering a cold and final warning. His words weren't loud, but they struck with precision meant to unsettle more than threaten. The student's expression froze as the realization settled. He was no longer a spectator. His turn was coming, and there would be no place left to run. Frizen's smile sharpened as he prepared his next move. With calm confidence, he urged the others to enjoy their laughter because it wouldn't last. Aster confronted his former pursuer, revealing he could stop the demonic realm's advance. But the enemy mocked his claim, warning that Aster's allies would be dead within minutes. Tension surged as Aster stood firm. Despite the warning, Aster asked why the betrayal had occurred. The man leaned in close, emphasizing that his reasons were simple, driven by his own interests. There was no remorse in his voice or expression. Suddenly, pain surged through the man's hand. Aster had already stolen his artifact. Shocked, he realized the artifact was gone. Aster's stealth and timing had left him defenseless before he could react. Holding the stolen artifact, Aster questioned the man's arrogance, stating that others could use it too. With practiced ease, he channeled its power, showing that he understood it just as well, perhaps better. He activated the relic, triggering a reaction from a nearby magical altar. Energy pulsed through the room, resurrecting old memories and emotions buried beneath years of suffering. The light signaled something long hidden. The man looked on, stunned by Aster's familiarity with the artifact. Aster's voice darkened as he remembered the betrayal. How could he forget the one who had once used forbidden magic against him? Memories of forbidden magic returned, of dark rituals and twisted powers. shadows of the past clawed through his mind, each tied to pain and bloodshed. The man had crossed a line long ago. It wasn't justice that had driven the man, but preservation. The blood of nobles had spared the true heir to protect House Deculon's image. Astor was marked as the scapegoat from the start. The man admitted to killing Astor himself before Deculon could reach him. He didn't act out of mercy, but to ensure Deculon wouldn't uncover Astor's potential, or the secrets buried with him. Astor revealed he had been chased relentlessly. The pursuit had driven him to madness, unable to distinguish right from wrong. Still, he had survived, hiding from the enemy's grasp again and again. The pursuer had searched everywhere: black markets, criminal dens, even the blood-soaked remnants of battlefields. But Astor was always one step ahead, elusive, and too fast to be caught. Eventually, Astor had chosen exile in the most dangerous place, the demonic realm. A swirling vortex marked the threshold, and it became the only refuge where no one dared follow. Astor described his time in the demonic realm. The constant pressure, beasts, and madness nearly broke him. His body decayed under demonic energy, and his mind teetered on the edge of insanity. Just before he fell, someone found him. A messenger came bearing news but never dared step inside. The message was simple and cruel: Astor had been declared dead by the outside world. Astor laughed bitterly, revealing that Deculon had captured the traitor, forcing him to confess everything about the artifact, the forbidden magic, and the lies they tried so hard to bury. Astor spoke calmly, recalling the emptiness that followed his escape. For days, he sat before the demonic realm, gazing into the sky, numb and silent. The silence had become a strange comfort. The injured enemy trembled, confused and afraid. Astor noted how much blood he had lost, then reached into his coat. He wasn't done yet, not with the conversation or the reckoning still to come. Astor pulled out a potion, tossing it casually. He admitted he hadn't been fully focused back then. His actions now were precise. The healing potion was a tool, not a kindness. With a chilling grin, Astor ordered him to survive. Death wasn't permitted yet, not until the story finished. The enemy hesitated, unsure whether the potion signaled mercy or something far worse. Realizing he had a chance, the injured man reached for the potion, determined to endure. Astor, meanwhile, resumed his tale, continuing as if he were alone. The past had to be voiced. Astor recalled the moment a wyvern soared overhead. It symbolized freedom, true, unchained flight. Compared to that, he felt broken and caged. That vision became the seed of a new decision. He compared the wyvern's flight to his own state: bitter, rage-filled, and aimless. Revenge had warped into obsession, disconnected from any righteous purpose. It was no longer about justice, only pain. With clarity, Astor chose to erase vengeance from his mind. The pursuit of enemies had consumed him, but now he sought clarity beyond that obsession. For the first time, he stepped back. But just as the realization hit, his opponent moved. Energy crackled. The forbidden magic was about to be used again. Astor saw the signs and responded instantly. Astor launched forward, his strike filled with years of rage and refined skill. The attack smashed into the enemy, slamming him to the ground with crushing force. Memories flooded back. Astor had absorbed the forbidden magic's secrets and endured visions of how his comrades died. Every moment had built toward this one. Magical seals wrapped around the enemy's body. He could no longer escape. Astor now had both the knowledge and the time to make the traitor suffer just as his friends had. Lifting the enemy, Astor vowed to recreate the pain his fallen comrades had endured methodically, relentlessly. The moment had come for retribution without mercy. Fear overtook the enemy as the magical grip tightened. The shadows of the past screamed through the room. Astor remained unmoved, focused only on delivering what was owed. As destruction loomed, rubble collapsed, and silence spread. Deep beneath the ruins, Astor stood unshaken, having finally begun to repay the blood price. Light pierced the underground space as a grate above gave way. A rescue squad descended quickly, led by urgent voices echoing off the stone walls. Time was short, but they had finally broken through. Orders were shouted: find the students at all costs, even if it meant sacrificing their own lives. The mission was clear. Dozens of figures scattered across the ruins with single-minded urgency. One commanding woman stepped forward, frustration visible on her face. She had just realized how much time had been lost. Her eyes burned with resolve. Failure was not an option. Professor Felina cursed the 2 hours consumed by sealing magic. She vowed silently not to let anyone die under her watch. Her responsibility was clear, and she took it personally. A subordinate approached with a crystal orb, informing her that all magical interference had been dispelled. The surveillance network was back online, and magic tracking systems had resumed functioning. Felina made a snap decision. Capture wasn't the priority. Saving lives came first. She ordered them to track the missing students silently, using both magic and physical search, without alerting the enemy. Scouts responded immediately, spreading out through the underground. Their confirmation rang loud yes. Survivors were spotted, scattered across the ruins, injured but alive. A rescue operation had begun in earnest. Among the ruins, students were found unconscious and bloodied. One group carefully supported a wounded boy, trying to stabilize him. The weight of the situation hung heavily in the air. Then something changed. Images appeared from earlier events. Monstrous golems had attacked, memories of chaos flashing back. Felina observed silently, puzzled by something she couldn't yet explain. The internal reports shocked her. For 2 hours, intruders had full control of the test site, yet not a single student had been killed. It made no tactical sense. Felina received a communication from Professor Farlin, who had entered the control room. He urged her to view the crystal screen herself. What she would see could not be described. She took a breath, composed herself, and looked into the projection. Her expression shifted instantly. What she saw was beyond expectation. Her voice trembled, sensing something very wrong. The screen displayed blood-soaked intruders, battered and barely alive. Their bodies had been destroyed with surgical cruelty. One struggled just to breathe. The other was unconscious and unrecognizable. Farlin, a seasoned professor, admitted it was hard to look at. Even he, with years of experience, felt unsettled. Whoever did this didn't just defeat them, they dismantled them. Felina's focus sharpened. Confusion gave way to suspicion. Her thoughts raced as she processed the brutality. Someone else had taken control, someone powerful. And then her eyes narrowed. Wait. Professor Felina reviewed a student file. The image stamped with a red X. The document described someone flagged for watch, due to abnormal power levels far above academic norms. She spoke gravely to the others, explaining that this student's power output exceeded what any student should possess. It wasn't just raw strength, it was precision and control unmatched in his grade. Another professor agreed and noted that they couldn't understand who or what the boy truly was. This wasn't a simple case of talent. He needed to be observed and restricted carefully. At that moment, the Academy's principal finally arrived, apologizing for his delay. He had come as fast as possible from the far eastern continent, but the situation had already concluded. Felina welcomed him respectfully and assured him that things were handled, though barely. The principal expressed gratitude for her work and said he had trusted her from the start. Then his tone shifted. He asked a pointed question. Did she truly believe that the boy shown now on the crystal screen was the one responsible for everything that had unfolded? Rain fell relentlessly from the night sky, drenching the world below in silence and weight. It was not just weather, it was a mirror to the storm within a mage's heart. The view of the Academy courtyard under the rain offered no comfort, only cold detachment. Lights glowed faintly in the windows, oblivious to the turmoil growing in the shadows beneath them. Every mage, no matter how strong, was cursed with a heart demon, a mental affliction born from suppressed emotions. These demons attacked without warning, disrupting concentration and shattering rational thought. In his past life, he had no such vulnerabilities. As a hardened troubleshooter, emotional damage was simply part of the job. He followed orders, accepted losses, and buried fear without question. But death by forbidden magic changed him. Rage had erupted in his final moments, an emotion he never expected to feel. That very rage remained buried, festering into something volatile after his return. Inside the coffin of trials, that hidden emotion surged violently. It became the seed of his heart demon, a ticking threat embedded deep in his soul, waiting for the slightest spark. Despite the danger, he welcomed the challenge. Uncertainty was an old friend, and fear had long become a tool. As a former troubleshooter, he knew how to fight through instability. A week had passed since the incident in the trials. The internal chaos had faded, and the environment calmed. Seeing the perfect window, he decided it was time to face the demon. Holding the red flower technique in hand, he focused his energy. Jokwa wasn't just a spell, it was the key to reclaiming control and extinguishing the fire inside before it consumed him. In his old life, he had only used non-elemental techniques meant for quick combat and utility. Elemental magic was uncharted territory, dangerous and beautiful in equal measure. Though he'd entered fire repeatedly, this was the first time he analyzed every detail. He read through the technique line by line, determined to master every concept. Circulating mana recklessly would only flood him with wildfire energy. He needed discipline, precision, and a calm mind before activating the red flower's true strength. Focusing inward, he began forming imagery, a flame, alone and undisturbed, born of pure intention and clarity. The vision burned brightly in his mind. No fear, no distraction, just a singular, unwavering fire. Finally, the flames ignited around him, steady and strong. He entered fire not to destroy, but to master. He stared at the flame in his hand, noting how destructive it felt even at rest. Though small in size, the power it emitted was far greater than what he was used to. When comparing it to his usual mana output, he found this technique to be nearly 3 times stronger. It was clear that the red flower's potential went far beyond normal spellcasting limits. However, sustaining it revealed a limit. His body trembled as he forced more power through, barely maintaining control. Still, the energy compression showed promise despite the rough execution. As he reflected on the new magic, thoughts of a shadowy enemy returned to his mind. The man who killed him once was likely still operating from the shadows. He walked the academy's dim hallways, aware of every sound. The quiet was unnatural, and suspicion followed every step. The sensation of being watched hadn't disappeared since awakening his fire mana. He paused, gripping a door handle as rain poured outside. There was no time to hesitate. If he truly wanted to survive this second life, he had to move decisively and stay alert. Outside, he crossed paths with an older man waiting in the rain. The stranger's gaze was sharp yet curious. Tension filled the air, but the young mage stood firm. The older man acknowledged his skill, noting how rare it was to manipulate volatile fire mana so smoothly. His presence was commanding, clearly someone of authority. Surprised, the young man recognized him as the academy president, but the old man corrected him, asking to be called principal, implying deeper ties and interest in the mage's progress. Suddenly, the old man's demeanor shifted. Power erupted around him, dark and immense. His tone grew serious, and his aura flared with pressure. Faced with unexpected hostility, the young mage tensed. He couldn't understand why those in power kept confronting him. This wasn't coincidence anymore. Confused and frustrated, he questioned everything. Why did people keep interfering? Why did he feel hunted? Who exactly had he become after returning? He reminded himself he was once a troubleshooter. He had survived the worst by never yielding, even when broken. Summoning his willpower, he stood unshaken, eyes locked forward. His conviction would not falter under pressure. Before him, the principal revealed his identity as the highest-ranking elder. Whatever came next, it wouldn't be easy. As the rain poured down, a student bowed nervously before the principal, shouting over the storm. He corrected himself mid-sentence, flustered by the pressure of the situation. The principal acknowledged the boy's energy, but warned him to lower his voice. No one could hear. He had already isolated the space with a sound barrier. The boy realized his attempt to gather others for help had failed. The principal had anticipated it, confirming his quick and calculated nature. Without hesitation, the boy asked why the principal had come. He admitted his curiosity but doubted a full answer. The principal invited him to sit and talk. Beneath the surface politeness, the boy sensed true hostility and unseen pressure building with every word. Recalling Professor Felina's warning, the principal claimed the boy was hiding something. He spoke calmly, but carried an unmistakable edge in his voice. A sudden burst of power shattered the ground as the principal's mana surged. He asked directly what had the boy hidden. The sheer pressure stunned the boy. Even without serious intent, the principal's aura overwhelmed him like a storm still. The boy compared him to a much darker figure from his past. Compared to that true monster, the principal's power felt survivable barely. He activated the interference formula, dispersing the surrounding mana to regain control of the situation. Sensing the topic, the principal assumed it related to the coffin of trials. He openly admitted that he had eliminated those responsible. The boy stood firm despite the storm. He neither denied nor disguised his role. The principal seemed mildly amused by his honesty. The principal questioned his lack of secrecy. The boy replied calmly, it wasn't a truth worth hiding anymore. He explained that although he hadn't intended to reveal it, the fact wasn't heavy enough to conceal either. He invited the principal to ask more, but inwardly, frustration brewed. Another powerful figure had shown up, meddling again in his affairs, just like before. Rain continued falling as the principal suddenly burst into laughter, his mood shifting without warning, from composed to amused. His unpredictability unsettled the boy. Watching him switch between serious and casual, the boy mentally labeled him as another eccentric lunatic. This man was nothing like the scholars he'd met before. The principal stood, offering a condition. He would ask questions, but only within what the boy felt comfortable answering. It was a strange form of mercy, but the boy accepted. They sat down in the open courtyard, letting the rain soak them both as equals. The atmosphere shifted again, now calm but charged with curiosity. The principal evaluated the boy's aura, calling it wild and uncontrolled, like a feral beast untouched by structure or discipline. He didn't say it as an insult, but as fact. There was a kind of magic beyond the academy's walls, the principal noted. The boy's presence confirmed it. His power wasn't learned from books, but forged in the field. Without hesitation, the principal asked, "Do you know the moment someone truly becomes a mage?" The question wasn't rhetorical, it demanded a lived answer. Confused but listening, the boy heard the principal call himself a senior in both title and battlefield experience. The weight behind his words carried real credibility, acknowledging the difference. The boy responded with respect. The principal, satisfied, encouraged him to continue telling his story, signaling that judgment was paused for now. As he looked into the boy's eyes, the principal recognized something rare: battle, hardened clarity. He had seen it before, in war mages who survived frontline madness. He wondered who had allowed such a transformation to occur in someone so young. Rage flickered in his thoughts. This wasn't how gifted mages should be shaped. Despite the setting, the principal wasn't focused on rain or rules. He was trying to understand the broken path the boy had walked and who had forced him down it. Rain fell steadily as Astor stood facing the elder, who remained calm and unmoved, his presence heavy with authority while the surroundings reflected tension and an unspoken conflict beginning to unfold. The elder judged the unseen enemies as worthless beings abandoned by fate, while Astor listened silently, sensing deeper intentions behind the harsh assessment and realizing that greater forces were already moving in the shadows. Astor questioned the elder's plans as the old man declared a crushing response, insisting that enemies must be eliminated completely, while Astor remained composed, evaluating the risks and consequences carefully. Astor's calm expression reflected his realization that the situation had progressed beyond simple conflict, while the elder observed him closely, testing his awareness and measuring his potential through subtle probing questions. The elder hinted at hidden knowledge, questioning Astor indirectly while maintaining dominance, as Astor responded cautiously, concealing his thoughts yet recognizing the elder's sharp perception and calculating intentions. Astor turned slightly, acknowledging the elder's insight while internally noting the danger of the conversation, as the elder introduced a name, revealing the first clue about the enemy's identities. Dark images of two dangerous figures emerged in Astor's mind as the elder described them, emphasizing their threat and influence. While Astor absorbed the information with growing focus and concern, Astor maintained a respectful stance while the elder continued pressing him, questioning his knowledge, as rain intensified around them, reinforcing the tension and the seriousness of the unfolding revelation. Both figures stood in silence as the elder prepared to reveal further details, while Astor remained attentive, understanding that the next information would shape his decisions and determine the path ahead. Astor remained composed under the rain as the elder acknowledged his response, sensing concealed truths while Astor admitted limitations carefully, aware that revealing too much could expose dangerous knowledge prematurely. The elder's suppressed anger became evident through his expression and presence, while Astor observed silently, recognizing the intensity behind the calm exterior and understanding that the elder's patience was gradually reaching its limit. The elder questioned Astor again, testing his composure and intentions, while Astor maintained control, realizing the elder suspected deeper insight and carefully balancing honesty with restraint to avoid provoking unnecessary hostility. Astor forced a light expression to deflect tension, masking his thoughts while maintaining caution, as the elder remained unconvinced, observing every reaction closely and continuing to evaluate Astor's true awareness. The elder shifted the discussion toward Astor's ambitions, acknowledging his plan with measured approval, while Astor listened attentively, recognizing an opportunity forming despite the lingering tension between them. The elder offered a conditional reward, suggesting support for Astor's goal, while maintaining authority, as the rain continued falling, marking a turning point where cooperation began to replace confrontation. Astor accepted the offer outwardly, maintaining respect, while internally reflecting on the risks, understanding that gaining access to knowledge would come with obligations and hidden consequences tied to the elder's favor. The elder demanded a favor in return, emphasizing his expectations, while Astor listened carefully, aware that this agreement would bind him to future actions that could shape his path significantly. The elder advised Astor to broaden his perspective, while Astor responded with controlled confidence, concealing unease, as both understood that their exchange marked the beginning of a calculated and uncertain alliance. The elder demonstrated a magical artifact, explaining its defensive purpose, while Astor observed closely, understanding its strategic value and recognizing that such tools could influence survival and control in dangerous confrontations. Aster analyzed the artifact's limitations, realizing its restricted functionality, while recalling structures where stronger defensive systems existed, comparing their effectiveness and identifying weaknesses that could be exploited or reinforced. Aster acknowledged the complexity of the mechanism, but admitted his lack of technical expertise, recognizing the need for specialized knowledge, while understanding that solving this problem would require assistance beyond his current abilities. The elder suggested seeking help from a trusted expert, while a powerful figure appeared behind him, symbolizing authority, as Aster considered the implications of involving others in his already complicated situation. A shadowed presence implied scrutiny over Aster's identity, suggesting potential complications, while reinforcing that trust would not come easily, and that every step forward required careful judgment and preparation. The elder proposed moving forward, despite uncertainties, while Aster remained attentive, accepting the direction as both recognized that progress depended on cooperation and navigating hidden dangers together. The next day arrived with a calm atmosphere, shifting away from tension as Aster entered a structured environment where knowledge and learning replaced conflict, marking a transition in his journey. Inside the academy, Aster quietly observed his surroundings while others focused on their studies, maintaining composure as the environment hinted at opportunities for growth and hidden challenges ahead. Damien and Chenbi approached Aster energetically, their contrasting appearances drawing attention, as he reacted with surprise, realizing that unexpected reunions could influence his path within this new setting. Aster sat across from Chenbi at a wooden table inside the academy, maintaining a calm posture while observing him, as Chenbi appeared uneasy, struggling to explain his sudden change in behavior. Chenbi shifted the topic enthusiastically, suggesting training together while trying to ease the atmosphere, as Aster accepted calmly, recognizing Chenbi's attempt to move past his earlier confusion. Chenbi expressed gratitude toward Damien, recalling recent events. He added more details excitedly, emphasizing how their situation had improved significantly due to recent actions taken. Aster listened quietly as appreciation was directed toward him, showing mild surprise, while maintaining a composed expression, as sunlight illuminated the room and softened the tense atmosphere from earlier. Aster denied taking credit, pointing out that others were responsible for the outcome, while remaining calm and detached, emphasizing that the changes were caused by decisions beyond his direct involvement. Chenbi reacted with confusion and admiration, realizing Aster's influence, while struggling to process the situation as he began to understand that Aster's actions had deeper impact than initially believed. Damien entered the scene confidently, drawing attention from others, while Chenbi shifted focus toward him, curious about his role, as Aster remained seated, quietly observing the interaction. Students gathered around Damien, discussing his ability to control a magical construct, while expressing amazement, as rumors spread quickly, enhancing his reputation within the academy environment. Chenbi returned to the table, suggesting a longer discussion, while settling into his seat, as Aster remained attentive, recognizing that their conversation would reveal more about recent events and future plans. Aster stood from his seat as Chenbi reacted in surprise, while the classroom atmosphere shifted, signaling an interruption, and Aster turned his attention toward a new presence entering with authority. Professor Felina appeared, her commanding presence immediately silencing the surroundings, as Aster looked up at her calmly, recognizing her status and understanding that her arrival carried serious intent. Aster acknowledged her identity internally while maintaining composure, observing her carefully, as he realized this encounter would likely connect to the matters previously discussed with the elder. Aster followed Felina into a private office where the formal environment emphasized her authority, as he remained calm, preparing himself for a conversation that would likely test his knowledge and intentions. Felina addressed Aster directly, making it clear that she was aware of recent events, while Aster responded cautiously, avoiding unnecessary disclosure and maintaining a controlled and respectful demeanor. Felina confirmed her awareness and settled into her position, signaling that the discussion would proceed seriously, as Aster remained attentive, understanding that his responses would shape her judgment. Felina questioned Aster's background and connections, identifying links to influential figures, while maintaining a composed yet authoritative posture, as Aster listened carefully without revealing more than necessary. She expressed clear disdain toward certain individuals involved, dismissing them as insignificant, while Aster remained silent, recognizing the alignment between her views and previously gathered information. Aster reflected on earlier guidance, realizing the importance of concealing his identity, while maintaining a neutral expression, as he understood that careful restraint was necessary to navigate this situation safely. Aster analyzed the hidden conflict between powerful figures, recognizing overlapping interests, while understanding that the current situation aligned with his position, allowing him to navigate events carefully without exposing himself unnecessarily. Professor Felina explained that despite suspicious circumstances, Aster would remain protected temporarily, as institutional authority supported him, while Aster listened silently, acknowledging the advantage while remaining cautious of underlying risks. Felina paused before continuing, observing Aster closely, as subtle tension filled the room, while Aster maintained a composed expression, anticipating that her next words would carry personal or strategic significance. Felina relaxed slightly, stating she would conceal the matter for now, while noting that Aster did not appear threatening as Aster remained attentive, recognizing the temporary nature of her judgment. Aster attempted to respond respectfully, maintaining distance, while clarifying his position carefully as he avoided misunderstanding, understanding that boundaries between student and authority must remain clear in this interaction. Felina reacted with visible surprise, momentarily caught off guard by Aster's response, as the atmosphere shifted unexpectedly, revealing a rare break in her composed demeanor during their conversation. Aster senses sudden hostility as Felina's glowing eyes pierce through the rain, revealing hidden power, while the surrounding air trembles, signaling a shift from control to imminent danger and pressure rises. Felina releases overwhelming force that distorts the environment, while Aster remains steady, analyzing the threat and controlling his reaction, understanding that direct resistance would lead to immediate consequences for him now. Aster observes Felina closely as tension stabilizes, realizing the display was intentional, meant to test her, while he maintains composure, preparing for what comes next without revealing his internal calculations carefully. Inside, a quiet office, Aster faces Professor Felina, who acknowledges recent events while he listens attentively, recognizing her authority and the significance of this meeting within the structured academy environment for him. Aster processes her explanation about preserved students and controlled damage, while maintaining calm understanding the broader implications, and considering how this outcome connects to earlier decisions and hidden influences around him presently. Aster shifts his focus and presents his objective, carefully outlining a plan involving shared knowledge, while Felina evaluates him, recognizing potential value and weighing the practicality of his proposal within institutional limits. Felina considers the proposal and shows measured approval, acknowledging its usefulness, while maintaining authority, as Aster observes her reaction, understanding that gaining support requires careful alignment with her expectations and priorities ahead. She turns the discussion toward a significant matter, emphasizing an artifact linked to dangerous forces, while Aster listens closely, recognizing the scale of responsibility and the potential risks associated with its study. Felina explains that researching the artifact will take time, reinforcing the seriousness of the task, while Aster remains attentive, understanding this opportunity binds him to responsibilities that may shape his future path. Aster examines the gauntlet as its value is acknowledged, while understanding that destruction is simple, but the true threat lies in unknown forces connected to it, and the danger surrounding its existence. Both Aster and Felina remain focused as the issue becomes clearer, while tension rises and attention shifts toward those who will seek the artifact, revealing a deeper layer of conflict beyond its surface. A dark ritual symbol appears in Aster's thoughts, representing forbidden magic, while figures hidden in shadows suggest organized groups, and the scale of the threat expands beyond a single individual or event. Felina explains that multiple factions pursue the same goal, while Aster listens carefully, realizing these groups act separately but share the intention of reconstructing a dangerous realm tied to ancient power. The purpose becomes clear as the forbidden magic circle is linked to recreating a demonic realm, while Aster processes the implications, understanding that this ambition threatens stability and invites widespread destruction. A past figure connected to the artifact is revealed, now gone, while the responsibility shifts to Aster, as he realizes others will pursue him to recover what remains and continue their objective. Felina warns that rival groups will persist relentlessly, while Aster listens in silence, understanding the seriousness of becoming a target and the constant danger that will follow him moving forward. Aster reflects on the risk of confrontation and the likelihood of facing powerful enemies, while maintaining composure, recognizing that survival depends on preparation and strength against inevitable encounters ahead. Aster remains calm and resolute, accepting the coming conflict without hesitation, as his mindset shifts toward eliminating threats, understanding that decisive action will determine his survival in the unfolding struggle. Aster shows a confident expression after hearing the warning, while Felina reacts with surprise, sensing his unusual mindset, as he remains composed and focused, despite the danger surrounding the artifact and situation. Aster formally presents his intention to research the artifact, while demonstrating controlled power, as Felina observes his ability and evaluates his ambition, recognizing both his potential and the risks tied to his request. Felina acknowledges his determination and agrees to consider the matter while maintaining authority as the atmosphere stabilizes, marking the beginning of cooperation regarding the artifact and its future study. The door suddenly opens as an urgent presence interrupts the meeting while tension rises immediately, signaling unexpected developments that demand attention and disrupt the controlled environment within the office space. A messenger delivers critical news about an important arrival at the academy, while Aster listens carefully, understanding that this event carries significant weight and could influence ongoing plans and decisions. Aster processes the announcement silently, recognizing the name mentioned as a powerful figure, while his expression shifts slightly, understanding that new complications are about to unfold within the academy. Outside, activity intensifies as orders are given to strengthen defenses, while individuals move quickly across the grounds, reflecting urgency and preparation in response to the arrival of a high-ranking figure. A carriage approaches the academy, escorted with authority, while its presence signals influence and power, as the environment grows tense and organized in anticipation of what follows next. A group of influential figures arrives together, commanding attention, while Aster observes from a distance, understanding that their presence will alter the balance within the academy and affect future events significantly. The head of House Declan arrives with composed authority, while the elder analyzes his reputation as a genius, noting his rise through ability yet questioning the secrecy surrounding his actions and true intentions. He watches the figure approach from the carriage, recognizing his influence, while sensing inconsistencies between his reputation and behavior, suggesting that hidden motives and unusual choices define his current position. The figure remains elevated within the carriage, refusing to step onto academy grounds, while Aster notes this deliberate action, understanding it signals distance, control, and a calculated display of dominance over others. The head of House Declan presents himself humbly through a subordinate role, while maintaining presence, as observers note the contrast between his position and behavior, revealing a complex and calculated identity. He studies the situation carefully, recognizing the unusual contradiction, while analyzing tradition and authority, understanding that such behavior signals deeper intentions hidden beneath controlled and deliberate actions. The conversation shifts as the head of House Declan raises a question, while others respond cautiously, and Aster remains observant, recognizing subtle probing intended to test reactions and uncover hidden information. The elder redirects attention by referencing past events, while revealing awareness beyond expectation, as Aster realizes he is being subtly tested through indirect questioning and calculated statements. Observers react with concern as the probing continues, while Aster remains composed, understanding that knowledge about the artifact is limited, and any exposure could shift the balance of power significantly. The head of House Declan concludes with a confident expression, while Aster senses underlying intent, recognizing that the encounter marks the beginning of a deeper confrontation shaped by intelligence and hidden agendas. The head of House Declan demonstrates overwhelming control by displaying a complex magic circle, while calmly revealing his actions, proving his capability, and asserting dominance through precise and calculated execution. He reveals responsibility for capturing the target, while dark energy spreads around him, emphasizing his power, as the scene reflects destruction and control, highlighting the imbalance between him and ordinary individuals. The aftermath reveals the defeated figure, while the head of House Declan remains composed, confirming his victory as the situation demonstrates his efficiency and reinforces his position as a dominant force. Aster observes the academy from above, reflecting on the situation while recognizing the head's actions align with expectations, yet noting the timing feels unnatural and suggests careful orchestration behind recent events. Aster analyzes past knowledge and compares it with the present, realizing the head's strength and behavior match previous understanding, while questioning whether recent actions were intentionally planned or manipulated. Aster considers the possibility of deliberate control, while observing the head again, recognizing precision in his actions, and understanding that such calculated behavior indicates deeper intent beyond visible outcomes. Standing above the academy, Aster acknowledges the head's overwhelming presence, comparing him to an immovable force, while recognizing the gap in strength and influence between them at this moment. Aster remains calm and begins forming his own resolve, shifting from observation to intent, while recognizing that future confrontation is inevitable and requires growth and careful preparation. Aster clenches his resolve as determination replaces hesitation, accepting the challenge ahead, while focusing on surpassing the head's dominance and preparing to confront him directly in the future. Several days had passed since the recent events, and the academy's atmosphere grew lively once more. Students returned to their routines, unaware of the deeper conflicts brewing beneath the surface. While the academy celebrated its temporary peace, Aster's father pushed forward with his own agenda, not content with previous schemes. He escalated his actions by initiating a new plan through a powerful organization. He dispatched a formidable being, an artificial creature created by high-level magic, designed specifically for assassination. This entity was beyond what ordinary mages could handle, and its target was closely tied to the Academy's current leadership. Despite the looming threat, that part of the story had not yet reached the surface. For the students, especially Aster, their focus had shifted to lighter matters. As they awaited news of future enrollments, the Academy had entered a festive mood. Colorful decorations hung across the courtyard as excited students gathered in groups. The energy shifted completely toward celebration, and the tension of recent trials seemed distant. The occasion was the Pistoniki Festival, a tradition held in honor of students who had fought during the Age of War. It served as a symbolic moment of unity, reminding everyone of past sacrifices and present peace. The Academy's decision to host the festival seemed tied to recent events, perhaps even viewing the trial corridor incident as equally worthy of commemoration. The mood had shifted dramatically, offering a moment of relief. Students laughed and celebrated, wandering through the open squares filled with stalls and performers. Alcohol was freely available, further fueling the cheerful energy and helping the Academy shed its earlier gloom. Even hired mercenaries, present for security, took part in the festivities. Though most remained professional, the off-duty ones joined the revelry, drinking and cheering loudly among the crowds as the festival carried on. The festival's energy peaked when a boisterous mercenary, already drunk from earlier rounds, laughed off his latest opponent in the drinking contest. Confident and loud, he challenged anyone nearby to step up next. Slamming his mug down with force, the mercenary signaled the continuation of the competition. Cheers erupted around the table as others gathered to watch who would dare take on the champion. Without hesitation, Damien, young and impulsive, volunteered himself. His sudden enthusiasm startled nearby students, but he stepped forward eagerly, prepared to test himself against the seasoned drinker. Meanwhile, a formal announcement echoed throughout the Academy grounds. An Academy representative called students to gather in front of the Sage Hall, where the Pistoniki Award ceremony was about to commence. Groups of students began to move toward the venue, shifting focus from the festivities to the upcoming recognition event. Among them, Aster and his peers casually made their way across the stone paths. Aster, fully aware of the efforts he had made, knew this was a moment to receive what was due. As he walked, determination flashed in his expression. He was ready to claim his reward. Inside the grand hall, the headmaster gave closing remarks before the official ceremony began. Rows of students sat quietly, listening as the event transitioned into the main awards presentation. With order and clarity, the names of the top contributors were called one by one. Recipients were expected to approach the podium to receive their recognition in front of the full assembly. Among the names announced, Dahlia Daytonal and Damien von Blander were first to be called. Both rose from their seats calmly, walking toward the stage as the audience looked on. The next, Eveline D. Plancher, was introduced first, her confident posture and noble air hinting at her prestigious background. She represented the influence of the Aldean Trading Company. Next was Chenby, appearing more reserved but equally observant. He scanned the scene carefully, clearly aware of the importance of this moment. Finally, Aster stepped forward. His eyes were sharp, his posture firm. The officials confirmed his identity, but unlike the others, he analyzed Eveline with skepticism. Though her credentials were solid, something about her felt off. Aster couldn't shake his suspicion. Despite Eveline's recognition, he felt her reputation didn't match any significant memory from his previous life. He silently questioned how someone so unremarkable had gained public acknowledgement. He reasoned that student testimonies must have supported her, making her presence seem more credible. Regardless of his doubts, the process moved forward. The elder stepped forward solemnly, bearing a wrapped reward. As the cover was removed, the item inside revealed itself with a glow, a top-grade elixir, an uncommon treasure among young mages. The elder presented the box directly to Aster, thanking him for his contribution. His tone was respectful, though firm. Aster accepted it without excitement, already judging the container as plain and unnecessary. He looked at the box and questioned whether he needed to return it, openly calling it trash. The elder gave a sharp response, threatening to incinerate Aster alongside the box if he found it discarded improperly. Aster smirked, amused at the elder's threat. He held the box with no intention of keeping it, already plotting his next move. Despite the warning, he decided quietly he'd burn it in secret. With the conclusion of the award ceremony, the students dispersed into the academy grounds. Aster, Damien, and Chenby walked together, blending into the crowd, enjoying the festival that followed. The group wandered through the academy plaza, Colorful decorations surrounded them, and laughter echoed from every corner for the first time in a while. There was no rush or pressure. After a long period of non-stop training and assignments, the students finally allowed themselves to relax. Astor reflected on their efforts and decided it was reasonable to take this one day without obligation. As night fell, a sudden streak of light shot into the sky. The stillness was broken by the sharp whistle of fireworks being launched above the academy towers. The sky erupted into vibrant colors. Fireworks burst in succession, painting the dark canvas with waves of red, gold, blue, and green. Students stood in awe, their faces illuminated by the flashing lights, while others were overwhelmed with excitement. Astor quietly observed, noting the spectacle's extravagance. Despite thinking it was wasteful, he couldn't help but admire its beauty. Standing silently beneath the fireworks, Astor felt a quiet determination. One day, he told himself, he would create a tower so tall that even a show like this would be visible from its peak. He imagined a grand festival held atop that tower, one lasting an entire week, where the world could celebrate. Even if his vision couldn't be experienced with his own eyes, it would be visible from the highest point. In his vision, the event would end with the sage ascension ceremony. At its center, the great sage Astor would rise, ushering in a new era, perhaps even riding a white wyvern above the cheering crowds. A white owl appeared suddenly at Astor's window, flapping its wings with an impatient rhythm. Astor, who had just awakened, realized the bird was not what he had imagined earlier when dreaming about a majestic white wyvern. The owl delivered a small message. Astor opened it and read the note without surprise. It contained brief instructions, telling him to come to the usual location. He recognized the handwriting immediately, and sighed, leaning out the window. Astor watched the owl fly off. He muttered about the bad timing, being summoned right after the festival. Still, he acknowledged the familiar's resemblance to its owner. Astor arrived outside a secluded building on campus. The path was quiet, and the grass was overgrown. It was a place long forgotten by most students and staff. He glanced up at the structure, noting its age. The building had once belonged to a group of troubleshooters but had since been abandoned, making it the perfect place for private discussions. Entering through a side door, Astor called out to his senior. Inside, the atmosphere was still and undisturbed. His senior answered from within, confirming his presence. Astor stepped inside to begin the meeting. The room was unexpectedly furnished like an office, filled with chairs, books, and a proper desk. Astor questioned the setup, slightly taken aback by the transformation of the hidden room. The headmaster defended the choice, blaming tradition, though he'd considered keeping things simple. Custom dictated formality. He offered Astor a drink as the owl returned to its perch nearby. As tea was poured, Astor sat down. He recalled the favor he had promised to return, a deal involving a library pass. Now it was time to fulfill that promise, and he waited to hear what was being asked of him. Astor listened, as the headmaster casually described the favor, a simple delivery request. The task was to hand-deliver a letter to someone, a friend the elder could not reach himself. Despite how harmless the request sounded, Astor's instincts flared. He had a sense for danger, and this favor gave off a very troublesome feeling. Still, he pressed for more details. The headmaster explained that he had gathered information through old comrades and managed to locate the person's general area. The target was elusive, but not unreachable. If one knew where to look, the destination was revealed: the Hammerin Great Forest, an ancient and perilous region. Astor's expression darkened. The forest was notorious for being vast and filled with danger. The forest contained more than just trees and wildlife. It was home to magical beasts and rare resources. Venturing inside without preparation could mean death, even for experienced mages. The headmaster downplayed the threat, saying people lived within the forest and that the target could be found by visiting a few base camps. Astor remained skeptical, still aware of the risk. Astor tried to protest, but the headmaster shifted the conversation. He mentioned having prepared a generous reward for Astor's efforts, one that was difficult to ignore. The list was detailed: 2 top-grade elixirs, 5 high-grade elixirs, and a mid-grade luxury item. The value of the reward was excessive for a simple letter delivery. Before Astor could speak further, the headmaster cut him off, asking what he had intended to say, caught between suspicion and greed. Astor gave in. The compensation was too tempting. He stood with a confident smile, already shifting into acceptance. The price was far too great to refuse. A bright sky looms over a grand building, signaling a new day at the academy. Inside, Astor receives an official document. As he reads through it, a glint of satisfaction appears on his face. Astor reflects on the peace he feels in this place. Though it belongs to a powerful institution, it has given him a strange sense of safety. He considers the many achievements he has accomplished since returning from the brink. Skills honed, knowledge acquired, and enemies surpassed. Recalling a darker time, Aster sees flashes of his previous struggle. The life he now leads seems surreal in contrast. Holding a second document, his focus sharpens. The document he holds signifies an important choice. Aster opens a sealed envelope containing a special artifact voucher from the Dart Workshop. The golden glow surrounding it shows its high value. This voucher represents rare support typically reserved for those at the very top. He realizes the workshop voucher is a powerful tool, capable of producing gear that enhances and protects magic users. The offer is not one to ignore, especially given how rare it is for such support to reach someone with his background. Meanwhile, the headmaster speaks with someone about Aster's path. He recalls wanting to bring Aster back to the academy, but Aster had refused, stating he had unfinished business elsewhere. An owl perched nearby listens quietly, carrying a message or perhaps watching over the scene with silent approval. The headmaster finally accepts Aster's decision to leave and assist in completing an important construction. Aster's answer is firm. He expresses admiration for the headmaster, but insists on following his own course. As Aster walks away from the academy building, he reflects on his own ambition. His previous life lacked clarity, but now he moves with purpose. He remembers a past where his vision was too grand and often dismissed. He considers how his choices could impact the future. For the first time, he believes he has the power to protect what matters. With the vast blue sky ahead, Aster moves forward, not just as a mage, but as someone determined to change the course of his life. Aster initiates a deep mana synchronization ritual, immersing himself in a cosmic space of raw energy. His figure glows blue, fully enveloped in the swirling currents of mana as his body undergoes complete integration. The process activates the mana limb structure within him. Aster senses a shift in his capabilities. The energy flow stabilizes within his core, and for the first time he feels the transformation of his body into a form closer to that of a magical knight, melding strength and arcane control. Emerging from the ritual, Aster stands confident, his body is stronger and his mind is clearer. For the first time, he truly believes he can surpass the limits of his previous life. Back on the academy grounds, Aster finds a quiet courtyard to continue his mana practice. Sitting cross-legged, he readies himself for controlled energy circulation. With unwavering eyes, he begins the process. He swallows a mana-boosting pill to accelerate absorption, and a surge of energy immediately activates within him. A burst of golden mana envelops Aster. His concentration deepens as the flow intensifies. His posture remains firm despite the pressure. The energy dances around him as if responding to his will. Aster maintains his breathing while focusing on even mana distribution throughout his muscles, nerves, and cells. The technique demands precise control, allowing him to strengthen every part of his body simultaneously. One mistake could break the flow. Magic runes begin to form across his suit as the mana engraves itself into his system. The process is painful, but essential. The synchronization between mana and physical form marks a critical foundation for high-level spellcasting and combat performance. Suddenly, an enemy bursts in, releasing fire-based energy. Aster immediately identifies the opponent, someone familiar. As flames gather in his hand, he casts a powerful counterattack spell, Firebrand, igniting the battlefield. Aster nearly loses focus as the intensity of his training escalates. Firebrand, the active spell, channeling immense energy through him, causes his body to tremble. Despite the strain, he maintains control, aware that such pressure may yield unexpected advantages. As his consciousness stabilizes, he experiences a sudden spiritual clarity. Within the brilliance of his inner world, a blinding stream of power illuminates his soul. This awakening signifies a profound connection between his body and the mana coursing through it. Aster channels mana through every circuit of his body, starting from his core and pushing it into every muscle. His body convulses under the force as he attempts to implant mana permanently into each fiber, enduring what most would avoid. The process pushes him past normal limits. Sparks fly violently as his body reacts. Sweat, pain, and fire swirl together in a storm of resistance. Despite the suffering, he presses on even as his muscles scream. His thoughts blur under the pressure. Aster questions if he's gone too far, but he refuses to stop. He screams into the void, body writhing from the continued infusion of mana. His determination hardens into defiance. Finally, the spell completes, and his body is overwhelmed. From outside the training grounds, loud shouts echo, warning that his physical limits are nearing collapse. But Aster remains inside the storm. The silence after the storm settles in. Aster breathes heavily, barely staying upright, but the process was a success. His mana limbs enhancement is complete. strength pulses through his frame with unfamiliar intensity. He flexes his fingers, feeling the difference. The stability of his output has drastically improved. His body, still growing, is finally beginning to align with his vision. Aster smiles with confidence. The dream of becoming a mage capable of defeating knights with pure strength is no longer fiction. His resolve is now matched by real power, and the path ahead has never been clearer. To measure its limits, Aster deliberately injures his own hand. The pain is immediate, sharper than expected, and blood spurts out more violently than intended. He is surprised by the severity of the wound. He clenches his teeth, analyzing the situation. Though the injury is worse than anticipated, he confidently predicts that it will fully heal within 15 minutes. As the blood flow slows, Aster observes his body with widened eyes. The regeneration is abnormally fast, far beyond standard human limits. He stares at his hand, shocked at the sheer healing speed. This new level of physical recovery defies common logic, even for a trained mage. Walking across the training ground, Aster reflects on how this level of regeneration made him feared and misunderstood in the past. Those who lacked context labeled him a monster. He slows down, noticing something unusual. A faint presence of mana lingers in the air nearby. His eyes sharpen as he senses an energy signature faintly familiar to his own. It's subtle, but it triggers his instincts. Kneeling beside a pool of fresh blood, he studies it closely. The traces of mana embedded in the blood match his own. Shocked, he realizes that someone else nearby possesses a similar magical wavelength, someone with a connection to him, or to his power. Aster decides to test the environment using a basic light emission spell. He releases a controlled flash. The light cuts through the shadows, revealing more of the surroundings. He immediately realizes the spell output is far beyond normal. The power exceeds what should be possible, making him question if the environment is enhancing his magic. His eyes widen in disbelief at the overwhelming result. He theorizes that the unusual effect might be due to natural mana density or a latent formula. A grin forms on his face. If his assumptions are correct, he has stepped into a zone where even the laws of magic seem to bend in his favor. Aster examines an old blood-stained magic book and deciphers the formula inscribed within. The content describes an advanced regenerative formula powered by blood and flesh, capable of extraordinary recovery. The realization dawns on him that whoever developed this spell had little regard for morality. As he walks across the plaza, he murmurs that it's better not to get involved with madmen. Despite the risk, he acknowledges the book's value and stores the knowledge mentally for future use. Looking ahead, Aster calmly plans his next step, first securing the location, then analyzing the surrounding mana. He knows the formula could be refined. Smiling slightly, he names the technique blood magic. In another part of the city, life returns to normal. People walk calmly near a cafe. Inside, Aster, Damien, and Chenbi are seated at a table, a female attendant greeting them and confirming their safety after recent events. She asks if anything else is troubling them. Damien, caught off guard, quickly insists he's perfectly fine and tells her to leave. His exaggerated reaction makes it clear he wants to avoid further questioning, though his flustered behavior only draws more attention. Unfazed, the attendant informs them that Lady Gammo has sent her with a message. The trio react with curiosity and slight tension. The mention of a message piques their interest, as Gammo's instructions are rarely casual or trivial. The attendant begins explaining the message, referring to a proposal Aster had submitted about the construction and architectural design of the Blunder statue. She compliments the structure and formatting of the plan. Aster listens calmly, recognizing that the referenced contributors were his own summoned creations: blood, sweat, and tears, numbered 1 and 2. He acknowledging the result of his effort and improvisation. The attendant, adjusting her glasses, prepares to reveal Lady Gammo's full message. Damien, eyes wide with excitement, leans forward eagerly demanding to know what the message is. Damien is shocked as the message from Lady Gammo is finally delivered. His proposal has been rejected. The assistant confirms it without hesitation, adding that the rejection is due to a rule stating no exceptions can be made. She explains that unless Damien ranks within the top 15 in the upcoming midterm evaluations, Lady Gammo will not entertain his request. This condition emphasizes performance and effort over privilege. Aster calmly understands the situation. This was Lady Gammo's way of pushing Damien to grow. The assistant reassures Damien, reminding him that he has reliable friends by his side who are ready to support him. Lady Gammo's assistant turns to Aster and offers him and Chenbi a reward on behalf of the Blunder family if they assist Damien in his efforts. The offer is tempting, but the assistant makes it clear it won't come easy. Damien lights up with excitement, while Aster begins to reflect on his own journey. He acknowledges that enduring the pain of training would have been unbearable without the proliferation formula. Damien, understanding the situation clearly now, smiles confidently. He accepts the challenge, ready to push forward with a mix of determination and playful energy. Astor visits a campus building with Damien for their first joint study session. He's hoping to get a sense of Damien's magical knowledge before diving into real lessons. When Astor asks about Damien's grasp of basic magic theory, Damien is visibly confused. His response reveals that he's unfamiliar even with the term. Astor asks to see Damien's learning materials. Damien opens his case, uncertain of what he packed, and reveals a massive pile of old books. Though he seems proud, it's evident the materials are outdated or unrelated to current magic studies. Two students sitting nearby stare in shock at the stack of books Damien brought. One of them realizes this study session might not go as smoothly as hoped. The students nervously ask Damien if he completed the homework assigned by professors. Damien casually confirms that he did, trying to reassure them. As they check his assignments, they discover bizarre, chaotic notes and sketches instead of real answers. One page is barely legible, another features a crude drawing of a monster. Astor begins to panic internally. He realizes that Damien's magical education is non-existent, and the knowledge needed to pass exams is still far from reach. Though Damien likely had help in subjects like history and culture, his magic-related skills are severely lacking. Astor considers his own limits, wondering if he can take on the task of teaching him properly. As Astor looks at Damien, he wrestles with doubt. He fears his only true confidence lies in punishing mistakes, not in teaching. Damien continues smiling innocently. While Astor contemplates Damien's situation, a student approaches their group and addresses him casually. Astor guesses incorrectly, prompting a brief moment of awkwardness. Suddenly, Furion clarifies that he overheard part of their conversation. He stands confidently, glancing at Damien, then turns back to Astor to ask if he's seriously attempting to help Damien study. When Astor gives a non-committal response, Furion steps in with unexpected enthusiasm. Seeing an opportunity, he claims that he might be able to contribute to Damien's studying efforts, surprising the group. Astor is skeptical. He questions Furion's ability to help, but Furion remains calm. He admits he hadn't planned to share this, but he's willing to reveal something valuable to prove himself. Furion places a thick binder on the table. The others stare in shock. The document is dense with information, and it immediately grabs the attention of Damien. Furion reveals the contents. It's a collection of all the Academy's past test papers from the last 10 years. Damien recognizes its value instantly. Furion isn't finished. He presents another binder, even more remarkable than the first. It's a full compilation of every professor's exam, with notes on patterns, favorite topics, and class-specific focus areas. One of the students examines the document and realizes it could drastically change their chances of passing. Though he distrusts Furion, the quality of the content sparks genuine hope for success. Astor, still unsure about Furion's motives, admits the truth internally. Despite his suspicions, Furion's material may be the key to helping Damien, and possibly the rest of them, survive the exams. Furion flashes a smug smile, clearly enjoying the situation. Astor, watching from across the table, holds back his irritation. Though tempted to hit him, he restrains himself, knowing Furion's help might prove useful. Furion, still confident, states that he'll only assist on one condition. Astor considers whether Furion's attitude alone justifies a punch, but remains silent to hear him out. Furion requests Astor's help with interpersonal combat training after midterms. He explains that Astor's fighting ability seems sufficient, and implies he'll exchange his academic help for practical training. Astor agrees with little hesitation, surprising Furion. With sharp determination, Astor tells him to follow immediately. His directness catches Furion off guard as the atmosphere shifts suddenly. As Astor leads the way, Furion scrambles to follow. Confused, he blurts out that he didn't mean now and asks if Astor misunderstood the request. But Astor keeps moving. Furion asks again if Astor is truly bringing him to train. Astor responds bluntly, he's not planning to help Furion. Instead, there's someone else who needs training right now. The two leave the academy grounds, stepping into the city of Hazen. Their route leads away from busy streets and toward the more isolated alleys behind the buildings. As they walk further, Furion questions the distance. Astor assures him they're almost there. Furion realizes they've wandered deeper into the backstreets than expected. Furion trails behind, now visibly annoyed. The walk, the silence, and Astor's vague answers leave him with one overwhelming urge to punch him. Astor stops walking and announces their arrival. They stand before a large building hidden deep within the city. Furion looks up at it, curious about its unexpected grandeur. Inside, They enter a private training facility with elegant architecture and high ceilings. Furion quietly notes the expense, realizing this isn't a simple training spot but a luxury reserved for the elite. Suddenly, Dahlia appears before them. Her expression is stern and focused. She looks at Aster and calls him by name, indicating familiarity and some prior connection. Aster recognized her as Dahlia de Denai. He realized she belongs to a powerful and respected noble family, known for strength and influence. Furion questions whether this meeting is necessary, though impressed by Dahlia's past accomplishments. He doubts she's someone worth learning from. Dahlia responds firmly, rejecting the idea of sharing her abilities lightly. She makes it clear that she refuses to allow anyone to benefit from her family's strength without proving themselves. She looks past Furion and directs her challenge at Aster, asking for his own decision. Aster remains calm and deliberate. Without hesitation, he says he wants one more thing from Furion before their arrangement ends: permission to use Dahlia temporarily. Furion is shocked by the request. Aster clarifies that he plans to use her as a tutor for Damien, just until exams are over. Dahlia listens quietly, evaluating the situation. Furion protests, but Aster argues that their deal isn't complete. He claims the materials alone weren't enough. With a firm tone, he reminds Furion of the true value owed, and demands it now. Aster shifts the conversation with firm authority, reminding Furion of a previous offense involving Chenbi. He implies that Furion's debt remains unpaid, tying it into the current negotiation. Faced with Aster's demand and Dahlia's presence, Furion reluctantly agrees. However, confusion sets in as he realizes he's no longer part of the decision. He questions Dahlia's authority over his fate. Furion erupts in protest, dramatically declaring his noble status. He insists he has free will, shouting that as a member of the House of Denai, he shouldn't be treated like a pawn. Aster mocks Furion's pride, calling him Mr. Proud Bloodline. His expression sharpens with a teasing threat, hinting that he needs someone durable for combat practice, someone like Furion. Furion is visibly stunned. His bravado fades, and he lowers his eyes in frustration. The confrontation leaves him no room to argue without appearing cowardly. Resigned, Furion mutters an excuse about his tight schedule and exits the training hall. Dahlia watches him go, silent and unreadable, while Aster maintains his composure. With Furion gone, Aster reflects briefly. He feels relief, knowing that removing Furion from the equation will ease Chanel's stress, which was his goal all along. Aster turns to Dahlia and states that with the exchange settled, it's time for him to begin his part of the deal. He stands ready to fulfill his role without delay. Aster faces Dahlia directly and reminds her of the arrangement. She had asked for interpersonal combat training, and he confirms he is prepared to deliver it now. Dahlia listens, her face revealing cautious interest. In a sunlit tavern, two students sit across from each other over a well-prepared meal. The red-haired student remains composed while slicing his steak, hinting at a serious conversation underneath the casual setting. The blonde-haired student pleads for a second chance. He's aware there's no going back from what he's about to agree to, but he appears desperate and determined. Silence hangs as he awaits a response. The red-haired student finally speaks with a faint smile. He expresses concern, not rejection, pointing out that the other might be pushing himself too far. It's both a warning and a subtle challenge. The blonde student addresses Eveline. He acknowledges that the fallout from the trial of the casket has stirred customer backlash, impacting his standing and influence at the academy. He blames Eveline for preventing him from collecting any benefit during the incident, leaving him with nothing but consequences. His tone remains formal, but the frustration is clear. Eveline doesn't deny it. Instead, he calmly accepts blame and shifts the conversation, claiming to have heard a rumor that midterm exam questions will be finalized within the coming week. Eveline reacts with unease. The man assumes the worst and questions whether he's being asked to steal the exam papers. Eveline counters with vague phrasing, denying the request while still implying intent. Clarifying further, Eveline claims he only shared information about his business and his hope for his voluntary assistance. It's carefully worded, just ambiguous enough to avoid outright guilt. Eveline hands the man a note suggesting a location where someone skilled in such tasks can be found. Smiling, she ends the conversation by urging him to finish his meal and consider the offer. In the training hall, the sound of swift footsteps echoed as a practice. Dummy stood silently in the sunlight. Aster watched it without emotion, his mind drifting to the request he had just received. Dahlia, once someone he couldn't stand, now stood before him seeking instruction. The very idea of teaching her felt absurd. In his previous life, their hatred was mutual and explosive. He recalled her gaze, cold, threatening, laced with the promise of violence. She once tried to kill him without mercy. Now, fate had turned, and he stood holding power over her. Astor admitted that only her reinforcements saved her back then. Otherwise, he would have ended her repeatedly, but time had shifted, and she had risen to be a mage of influence. Old grudges aside, investing in her growth could yield benefit. Dahlia, for reasons unknown, had once checked the Declan family's dominance, a feat few could achieve. That alone made her useful. Astor grinned. This timeline offered chances the past never did. If he wanted to humble her, brutally but with purpose. Now was the moment. He wouldn't get another clean shot like this again. Facing her directly, Astor addressed Dahlia with new intent. Despite her earlier hostility, she stood ready to learn. His challenge shifted from revenge to instruction, even if just barely. She asked for combat techniques, referencing his recent fight. But Astor knew better. Mimicking someone else's method would never work. She needed to develop her own style. He presented a scenario. 2 mages. Different classes. The weaker one wins. His point, power lies in adaptability, not just rank. Dahlia's training had just begun. Astor rejected Dahlia's guess outright. Combat wasn't about comparing classes or theories. He raised his finger, his expression sharp, signaling the true nature of battle. With casual confidence, he declared that the winner is simply the one who strikes first. His words were blunt, but the meaning was clear. Hesitation loses fights. He demonstrated instantly, firing a focused blast of magic directly at Dahlia's head. The lesson was clear and painful. She barely reacted in time as the spell slammed into her. The sun began to set, casting orange light across the courtyard. Training had gone longer than expected, and the once busy grounds were quieting down. Astor stretched with a sigh, surprised at how much time had passed. Despite the intensity, there was satisfaction in the air. Dahlia had endured, and that was enough for now. As he reflected, his attention shifted. A hint of curiosity sparked when he overheard a conversation about a reward. His eyes lit up at the mention of gold. 310 to be exact. Elsewhere, a student walked with tension in his step. He muttered angrily to himself, revealing that he'd been ordered to steal exam papers. His tone was bitter, not rebellious. He wasn't doing it willingly, but powerful forces were pulling the strings, and Evelyn, a figure he both feared and respected, was behind it all. Despite the danger, he tried to see it as a chance. If Evelyn's goal was to gain favor with the nobles through this plan, maybe he could secure his own place by helping her succeed. Determined to succeed, the student believed completing this mission would secure him favor and a noble connection. Confidence replaced his earlier fear as he moved with purpose. He approached the building Evelyn had described, recalling a past failure caused by a trivial error, but now with his nerves under control, he vowed not to repeat the mistake. He stepped inside. The interior was quiet and ordinary, a simple tea house. He questioned if he had arrived at the right place. A cheerful attendant greeted him and asked for his order, flustered. The student repeated a strange request he'd been told. Dragonhorn tea, hot but frozen. Despite the oddity of the order, the server accepted it calmly and left to prepare. The student, now certain he had found the right location, reflected on how ridiculous the code sounded. Trying to settle his nerves, he realized how embarrassing it would have been if this had been an actual tea house. Fortunately, it wasn't. A disguised operation was clearly underway. The server, smiling politely, acknowledged the student's confusion. Many newcomers expected a hidden base, not a black market operating from a bright and open CFA. He then asked what brought the student there. The response was simple: to obtain first-year academy exam papers. The request was made with confidence. As luck would have it, the shop had a seller lined up. The server inquired about the target department, and when the student mentioned the magic department, the reaction showed recognition. The attendant informed the student that the meeting with the seller was set for next weekend. He offered to bring him along to finalize the deal in person. The student hesitated, realizing that the request to join was not just an invitation. It was likely a way for the broker to remember his face and bind him to the deal. Still, retreat was no longer an option. Accepting the logic of verifying the goods and seller, the student agreed to proceed with the meeting. Satisfied, the broker smiled and prepared to share the meeting details. He emphasized the importance of secrecy, warning the student not to record or write anything down. The atmosphere inside the tea house remained calm, but outside, someone else was watching, unimpressed by the theatrics playing out within. Astor, analyzing from a distance, found the situation suspicious. The timing of the seller, buyer, and setup felt far too convenient. He sensed something was off. The lack of a listed price and the sudden appearance of a seller for stolen exam papers only fueled Astor's suspicions. The whole setup reeked of deception. Determined to uncover the truth, Astor activated a magical gate, deciding to investigate the situation personally before the deal was made. With a disguise in place and Declan robes ready, Astor assumed a new identity, his target, the wealthiest participant involved in the transaction, and he planned to strike first. Inside the tea house, the quiet clink of cups and footsteps echoed. The broker walked calmly, his mind already drifting away from Hazen. The job was nearly done. He sipped his tea, considering his next destination. Staying in Hazen was no longer an option now that he had possession of the stolen academy exam papers. The danger was mounting. With the operation nearly complete, he began planning his escape, wondering which city or region would be safest to disappear into next. Suddenly, the cloaked Astor entered unnoticed. The broker, caught off guard, realized the man had approached without making a sound. He froze in place. Recognition struck immediately. This was no ordinary customer. It was a member of the Declan elite unit, Red Jade. Fear set in as the broker braced for interrogation. Red Jade dismissed the formalities. He demanded straight answers, skipping the coded language. The atmosphere shifted as the broker nervously complied, visibly rattled. The masked mage stated his goal clearly. He was searching for a spatial bag, a powerful rare item once owned by a deceased mage named Callahan. The broker panicked. He recognized the reference and understood the risk. That item had vanished after Callahan's death. Why was Declan searching here? Denying any knowledge, he tried to steer attention away, but Red Jade shifted the topic, asking about the student from earlier. The broker laughed nervously, unsure how to answer without incriminating himself. The masked man silenced the broker abruptly. His voice was cold, and his magic pressure caused a sharp crackle in the air, halting the broker mid-thought. He scolded him, stating that the mental noise, the constant scheming, was irritating. His gaze sharpened, and the broker finally realized the truth. This wasn't just any Declan mage. Panic setting in, the broker confessed. He insisted the matter with the student wasn't directly tied to House Declan, hoping to lessen suspicion. But the masked man wasn't convinced. The broker hesitantly began his explanation, but the masked man interrupted, suggesting they walk to the warehouse while talking. The sudden shift raised alarm. The broker, confused and hesitant, questioned the decision. Typically, a customer would inspect goods themselves, not be escorted out mid-discussion. The masked man's response wasn't verbal. He suspected the broker of hiding something, and he was closing in fast. Nervous and trapped, the broker could only think of one thing. This wasn't about goods anymore. The broker stands uneasily in a dim underground corridor, facing Red Jade. He questions the severity of the task ahead, but Red Jade warns him that once he's involved with the Declan name, there is no turning back. Red Jade calmly explains that any missteps the broker makes will have no ties to Declan. They'll be erased from the family's concern. The deal is harsh. The broker's safety hinges on perfect obedience. The broker reflects on the mission, knowing it revolves around a girl named Eveline. While he's unaware of the full story, whispers suggest her shady dealings involve trading academic success for bribes. Red Jade affirms the target's name, Eveline. She's not just known in the underworld, even within the academy. Her name is whispered frequently, wrapped in rumors that conflict with her outward image. Eveline's appearance is graceful and proper. She arrives at the academy dressed sharply and confident, exuding elegance. From her manners to her poise, she presents the perfect image of a well-raised, intelligent student. Within the classroom, she smiles and mingles like a model pupil. She earns the trust of professors and peers alike. No one suspects a thing. Red Jade's stomach growls, but irritation overrides hunger. It is frustrating to see someone like Eveline living comfortably off schemes, while others struggle. He seethes, believing her luxury is unearned and unjust. The broker opens the door to Eveline's supposed storage. Red Jade follows him in, scanning the environment with careful eyes, noting every detail with measured calm. Inside, the room glows with stolen goods and magical supplies. It's a treasure trove of contraband, the proof they need. Red Jade's eyes narrow. Red Jade examines the goods and concludes, there's nothing obviously illegal, but insists they confirm everything through the family, he requesting something specific for their investigation. The broker, unsure, asks for clarification. Red Jade instructs him to prepare 2 spatial pouches. Any item that raises suspicion will be taken back for deeper inspection. The broker hides his growing irritation, silently cursing Red Jade's demands. He clenches his teeth in frustration, forced into a more dangerous role than expected. At the Academy Tower, bells ring, marking the passage of time. Inside, students continue practicing spells. Damien displays a powerful magical construct, drawing everyone's attention with its complexity. Damien effortlessly controls the magic circle, stunning the others. One classmate, flustered, can't understand how Damien maintains structure without following standard safety protocols. The other students argue whether it's genius or recklessness. To one of them, this place feels chaotic, a battlefield of intellect and egos. Even simple academic days are turning into mental war zones. The boy calls Damien a genius, but one who lacks common sense. Despite that, his raw skill in producing results is undeniable. His success often defies normal logic or accepted magical theory. He worries Damien might even influence Dahlia, a serious and disciplined girl. She quietly walks away, lost in thought about Astor and Damien's strange progress. As the boy returns, a quiet voice greets him. Something about the tone suggests it's already aware of the chaos brewing around. Dahlia enters the room confidently, drawing immediate attention from her classmates. Her presence is sharp and assertive. The boy flinches at her arrival, clearly unsettled. He stares up at Dahlia with an intense glare. His frustration boils over. He clenches his fists and seems on the verge of shouting. Time passes. A week goes by with the students deep in studies. The students spend time sketching precise magical diagrams, working through every detail as others around him remain focused on their own tasks. Astor anxiously checks over answers with another. The boy, calm and composed, confirms the corrections. He reviews the assignment's key points without hesitation. Damien reacts with disbelief after receiving validation. The realization that he got everything right overwhelms him. He clutches his notes, almost emotional from the success of his effort. Excitement spreads. He celebrates his hard work, joking about enduring pain to succeed. The boy responds with confusion but doesn't comment further. He reflects silently. The week was filled with intense effort, and no one escaped without struggle. His expression remains stern, but there's a trace of acceptance in his thoughts. Damien shouts with pride, feeling he gave everything he had. He lifts his arm in triumph, his energy contrasting the boy's quiet composure. They all completed their goals differently. The boy looks across the room at Astor. His gaze lingers. In his mind, she wonders if he's progressing as much as the others. A silent challenge forms between them. Under a moonlit sky, Red Jade crouches silently on a rooftop, lost in thought. Suddenly, he flinches. A sharp sensation hinting that someone has just cursed his name from afar. With narrowed eyes, Red Jade looks down from the roof. His gaze scans the academy grounds where students linger and chat unaware. He suspects trouble is brewing, and he intends to observe it himself. As murmurs rise below, Red Jade remains hidden in the shadows. His expression tightens as he prepares for what comes next. Every movement below is watched. A student below, holding documents, tries to steady himself. He breathes deeply, attempting to mask his nerves. He knows Red Jade is watching from above, and it unsettles him. Red Jade moves swiftly, leaping from the rooftop. The student tenses. Despite his worry, he remains still. Interfering now could expose him or lead to something worse. He chooses to wait. With focused eyes, Red Jade draws out a glowing orb. Its surface reflects the moonlight. This artifact is key to his surveillance. He activates it, intending to uncover secrets hidden inside the academy. The student calmly explains the upcoming academic evaluations. The list includes both core magic subjects and general electives. Every student will be tested thoroughly. A sealed envelope containing patterns and documents is presented as evidence. It confirms the materials match academy protocols, proof of authenticity and involvement. Eveline listens carefully. Across from her, the broker confirms continued support. He assures her that both her group and the upper circles will receive what they need. The student smirks, pleased that Damien's involvement has elevated the plan's credibility. With the support of a key student, he believes his influence within the family will rise sharply. The aide assures Eveline the operation will be reviewed again after a detailed inspection. He states that Damien will likely handle the results, linking her actions directly to him for safety and control. Eveline sits calmly at her desk, appearing composed. As their meeting concludes, she readies herself for what's next. Her expression reveals no emotion, only focus on the unfolding operation ahead. Eveline's mood shifts. Her expression sharpens with confidence. She's not intimidated, she's in control. She reminds her contact that failure is not an option for anyone involved. She rises from her seat, maintaining poise as she moves past the aide. The broker confirms that if anything fails, the blame will not fall on her but instead on Damien and the upper trading circle. They prepare to leave together. Eveline agrees to share a meal, signaling the close of negotiations. She walks calmly while the cloaked figure follows at a respectful distance. From a window, Red Jade silently observes. He expected minor corruption, but realizes the scale is far more serious. Eveline's influence is deeper than anticipated. He slips inside the now vacant office. He knows he must act before Evelyn repeats her schemes. He searches for a weakness, anything that can stop her momentum, at the desk. Red Jade hesitates. He had recorded the interaction, but using the evidence immediately would be risky. He taps the surface thoughtfully, weighing the consequences of exposure. Red Jade suddenly pauses mid-thought. A realization flashes in his mind, a clean method to proceed. He quickly retrieves a pen and prepares a blank page, organizing his approach. He begins writing with urgency. Though uncertain of Eveline's downfall, he believes his next move must be exact. As he continues transcribing, he silently evaluates the original document. He admits his handwriting hasn't lost precision. The work reminds him of previous intelligence operations. Red Jade's hand continues copying every word without pause. Each stroke is clear and purposeful. Though tedious, the process feels necessary, not just for reporting, but as a statement of control. He applies a seal with firm pressure. It's a sign of authentication, one that carries weight. Despite the hidden setting, this copy is his weapon, something more decisive than a recording alone. Looking at his finished document, Red Jade reflects on his own persistence. Eveline's manipulation won't go unchecked. He believes she's already one step behind. Elsewhere, under the night sky, a girl with silver hair moves through a hallway. She appears restless. Her steps quicken as she focuses her energy, preparing a spell with practiced intent. She whispers a reference to an advanced casting method, one known for its speed and offensive force. Her breathing sharpens, signaling both readiness and pressure. The spell erupts from her hand. Its power glows brightly in the dark. She understands its danger. Even geniuses can die when they overreach. She casts, knowing there's no room for error. The academy bell echoes through the air as students gather in the grand lecture hall. The instructor's voice instructs the class to raise their hands and submit their exam sheets. Rows of students shuffle and mumble as tension thickens across the spacious auditorium. Amid the students, a green-haired boy calmly writes down complex magic formulas. Others glance curiously, noting the strange symbols and confident motions. His classmates whisper, confused by the content, and his focused one student questions how he solved the exam without visible effort. Another accuses him of cheating. The green-haired boy remains calm, his notes perfectly structured with magical theory. He responds briefly, claiming that merely paying attention during lectures is enough. From a distance, Evelyn de Flachet glares at the green-haired boy. Her inner thoughts reveal irritation and disbelief. She suspects that the boy either has a gifted intellect or has been secretly studying in private. Evelyn grins. While observing quietly, he notes that this boy, named Drimion, is the heir of a prestigious haremi family, owners of vast territory and influence. The realization sparks intrigue more than concern. Internally, she marks the first phase of his plan as complete. Her expression shifts from doubt to satisfaction. She watches Drimion with calculated interest, hinting that this encounter is only the beginning of something larger. Evelyn reflects on an agreement linked to the exam, believing that it will secure her priority access to haremi territory. This deal is one of 4 the orchestrated. Smiling slyly, she recalls receiving great compensation from the other 3 involved. For her, success is already certain. The exam is merely a formality. Just then, a sudden noise distracts her. The door opens, and several masked individuals enter the room. Recognizing them as clients or possibly enforcers, Evelyn stiffens slightly, realizing the next phase has truly begun. A man in uniform approaches Drimion during class and calmly instructs him to follow. Confused, Drimion asks if he is truly being summoned. The atmosphere grows tense as whispers begin to spread. A hooded figure confirms Drimion's name with a chilling stare. His presence exudes authority and urgency, without explanation. He repeats the order for Drimion to leave immediately. From her seat, Evelyn watches the situation unfold, alarm rising on her face. Her confident expression fades as confusion replaces it. She is left wondering what kind of situation is taking place. The next morning, the school courtyard is filled with students. An announcement rings out, instructing all first-year students to gather in the auditorium for an urgent assembly. Murmurs spread as students file in. Many wonder why they've been summoned so suddenly. Some recall faint rumors from the day before, but no one seems to know the full truth. Evelyn stands among the crowd, her eyes scanning the room. She questions what's happening, convinced she couldn't have made any mistakes. But the mention of someone named D-Bay sparks concern. Others suspect it might be Drimion. A sharp command for silence echoes as the disciplinary officer appears on stage. The students quiet down as he prepares to address them. The red-haired girl turns her attention to him with anticipation. He states that rumors have already begun to spread. To clear confusion, he reveals that cheating was discovered during the recent midterm exam for the first-year basic class. The room stiffens with shock. As the announcement settles in, Evelyn listens carefully. Reactions around her range from disbelief to admiration, with whispers spreading like wildfire. The weight of the accusation begins to take hold. The disciplinary officer formally announces that the cheaters include a masked individual named D-Bay and 4 accomplices. All are to be expelled and summoned for further investigation. The hooded officer states that the impersonator is not affiliated with the Academy. This shocking claim is meant to publicly expose the fraud and assert the Academy's resolve against misconduct. With firm authority, the officer calls out a name, Evelyn de Flachet. A spotlight falls on the red-haired girl, whose eyes widen in disbelief. The room falls silent as she processes the sudden accusation. Gasps ripple through the audience. Students murmur in shock, questioning whether Evelyn was involved. Some admire her presence while others doubt her guilt. Evelyn, stunned, quietly denies the charges to herself. As 2 students escort her toward the front, she struggles to accept what's happening. They tell her not to be ashamed, framing the moment as a chance for redemption rather than punishment. Still in disbelief, Evelyn laughs nervously, unable to grasp how she became the center of this event. She insists that she didn't cheat, but the officer declares that the ceremony of expulsion will now proceed, prompting a formal clap from the assembly. As applause echoes, Astor silently observes Evelyn's reaction from behind. He notes her composure and smiles, quietly pleased. He watches her walk away and reflects on the importance of returning to the right path and living righteously. For him, this is not about punishment but change. He declares Evelyn's case and her trial a success. Known as a just troublemaker, he believes in reforming the wicked, as a kind judge who turns evil into good. A week quietly passes after the intense events. One morning, news spreads across campus. The exam results have finally been posted on the announcement board. Students rush through the halls, eager and anxious. Inside the building, the notice board draws a large crowd. A pair of students pushes ahead, determined to see the list before it becomes too crowded. The pressure to know the outcome is high. They sprint down the corridor, eyes fixed on the posted scrolls. As they reach the crowd, breathless students look up at the board. One of them stammers in anticipation, desperate to confirm their ranking. The rankings reveal a shocking surprise. In first place is none other than Drimian von Haremir. 2 students scream in disbelief, overwhelmed by the unexpected result. Murmurs explode across the crowd. They stare at the board, stunned by the name. Astor, standing calmly beside them, calls their attention and instructs them to look carefully at the list once more. His tone is composed, but his presence is firm. The list clearly shows Drimian ranked at number 7. One officer nearby, wearing a green cloak, sheepishly admits they misread the chart and had confused the placement. A new wave of gasps follows as the correct top rank is revealed, Astor von Bolland. At number 1, Damien beside him, cheers loudly. Relief floods their expressions as the crowd reacts in awe. Astor and Damien had endured pressure, suspicion, and doubt. Now, seeing their efforts reflected in the results, the reward feels real. Damien clutches the scroll tightly, his joy uncontrollable. Astor sighs with satisfaction. He reflects on how much they suffered to reach this moment. The announcement board, once a source of anxiety, now affirms the justice they fought for, and the truth behind their work. One friend turns, as Astor calls his name with excitement. Bright-eyed, he shares his dream of one day becoming a professor. The thought clearly thrills him, as he imagines a path through the academy toward a future in teaching. The boy excitedly explains how graduating and continuing into the advanced classes could one day lead to a teaching role. He appears overly optimistic, his enthusiasm lighting up his face with confidence. Astor is taken aback by the boy's bold ambition. He internally notes that he, without hesitation, just revealed his true feelings, something Astor didn't expect so directly. Later, as they walk together, Astor reminds the boy about the previous cult group they had encountered. He questions whether the boy truly understands the risks or the scale of what it means to aim for such a role. Astor recalls a hooded man receiving payment from a student who couldn't afford entrance exams. That student had turned to unethical means, a reminder of the harsh choices many face. Astor then questions how long it would take to even reach the professor level, suggesting it could take 3 or 4 years. The boy replies casually, referencing a professor as his source. Astor is surprised but listens intently. Astor asks if the boy is truly passionate about teaching others. The boy pauses, uncertain, but senses that it might be meaningful. Damien confidently asks if Astor thinks he couldn't teach. Damien jokes, flexing with exaggerated pride, saying even blood and sweat wouldn't stop him. Astor answers calmly. He tells the boy that there is a way if he becomes a great and recognized mage. Astor's eyes gleam with quiet resolve, already envisioning what lies ahead for both of them. Aster silently thinks to himself that if he ever teaches anyone, he'll use the boy as the model. He imagines molding someone like the boy, or better yet, shaping the one who taught Damien. He envisions the image of a great archmage. The thought of teaching someone who could grow into that kind of power fuels a quiet determination in him. Aster glances at the boy and considers how his talent might even lead him to become a future professor. Inwardly, Aster admits that if the boy succeeds under his guidance, it reflects his own potential. Night falls, and a strong wind flows over the academy city. The rooftops shimmer under the moonlight. The peaceful town seems unaware of the quiet movements unfolding. In an alley, a door creaks open slowly, light leaks from inside, revealing a dim, secluded meeting space, hidden from the public eye. A man with short blonde hair, dressed in black robes, steps inside with a heavy expression. His footsteps echo as he walks into the small room, clearly expecting someone. Another figure, hooded and seated, greets him with a sarcastic comment, noting the man's habit of meeting in remote places. The atmosphere is tense but familiar. The hooded man taunts the other, calling him a loner who does nothing but dig in the dirt. The blonde man remains calm, brushing off the insult. The hooded man says he needs the other's help, dismissing the sarcasm. He leans forward slightly, making it clear this isn't a social call. The blonde man narrows his eyes and asks if this is about interfering with the academy. The blonde man stares ahead with a firm expression. A glint in his eye suggests he already knows the gravity of the conversation. His silence speaks of preparation and patience. The hooded figure finally reveals the purpose of the meeting, a discovery. Deep within the Hamel, great forest, ancient ruins have been found, ruins linked to a forgotten age. The man in the hood smiles darkly, excitement flickering in his eyes. He leans back slightly, amused. With mock sympathy, he remarks that things are about to get far more troublesome. The maid holding a teacup while explaining the academy's meal system to Chenbi. She outlines the difference between regular meals and special dishes provided through private tutors. Chenbi listens with curiosity but also caution, realizing the academy's structure is more complex than he expected. The maid continues explaining that noble families receive exclusive services and better meal options. Chenbi begins to understand the social gap within the academy. Aster studies Chenbi's expression, noticing his hesitation. The maid shifts the discussion toward Chenbi's home situation, asking about possible difficulties. Chenbi stiffens slightly, caught off guard by the sudden personal question. Aster remains silent, carefully measuring Chenbi's response. Chenbi admits that there have been problems at home, though he insists they have recently improved. The maid listens attentively, maintaining a composed expression. Aster remains observant, sensing that Chenbi is holding something back. The maid offers assistance on behalf of the noble house, suggesting they could resolve Chenbi's difficulties and even improve his family's living conditions. Chenbi's eyes widen in shock at the scale of the offer. Despite the tempting proposal, Chenbi politely refuses. His hands tighten together on the table, revealing the pressure he feels. He expresses gratitude, but declines the support, choosing not to rely on noble intervention. The maid assures Chenbi that he should not feel burdened and adjusts her glasses while maintaining her professional tone. Aster watches as Chenbi begins to speak again. Chenbi firmly states that he wants to remain friends with Damien as equals, without obligations tied to noble power. His expression becomes steady, showing determination. Damien drinks quietly, surprised by Chenbi's resolve. The maid's eyes widen briefly before she regains composure, recognizing that Chenbi's refusal is not arrogance but pride. The maid stands facing Aster and Damien, while Chenbi gathers his courage to speak. Chenbi admits that he feels like a burden among them, aware of the difference in status. Chenbi says that if the opportunity arises, he hopes to study magic at the Brantley family and broaden his knowledge. The request is modest but sincere, revealing his ambition to grow through effort rather than charity. The maid adjusts her glasses and evaluates Chenbi's determination. After a brief pause, she asks if he truly understands what such a request implies. Chenbi meets her gaze steadily and confirms his resolve without hesitation. In the Brantley estate garden, Damien's mother walks beside the family butler, under tall marble columns. Sunlight filters through the glass ceiling as she hears the report about Damien's friend. The butler confirms that Chenbi spoke sincerely and showed no greed. Damien's mother reflects on this, recognizing the value of a friend who does not seek advantage, with calm authority. She concludes that a friend who supports Damien's growth is worth supporting in return. She decides to extend limited assistance, not as charity, but as encouragement for both boys' development. A formal letter bearing the Brantley crest is presented to Chenbi. The document outlines official permission for him to attend special lessons. His hands tremble as he reads the elegant script, overwhelmed by the sudden recognition. Chenbi stares at the letter in disbelief, his composure breaking for a moment. The opportunity he only hoped for has been granted directly and formally. The weight of responsibility settles on him. Later, Damien energetically reviews exam results while the maid observes with quiet satisfaction. Aster stands nearby holding a book, watching events unfold with calm confidence. The decision marks a turning point, binding their futures more closely within the academy. Time passes, and the academy reaches the period leading up to the official duel preparation. A strict instructor with long red hair stands at the podium, announcing changes to the schedule. The instructor explains that regular first-year classes will be suspended, and all training will now focus on combat readiness. Students listen closely, understanding that this period is meant to prepare them for real confrontation, rather than ordinary study. The announcement signals that the academy is no longer treating training as routine, but as something tied to survival and rank. The instructor adds that participation in training will be left to the student's own choice. This sudden freedom confuses the class, as most academy rules are strict. A female student raises her hand, unsure what voluntary truly means. The instructor confirms that students may attend lessons or skip them without punishment. The hall fills with uncertainty, since such a decision could affect their future strength and standing. The instructor suggests students may even return to their families for private training if they prefer. The statement causes murmurs across the room, as noble students recognize the advantage they hold compared to commoners. Students begin reacting with worry and confusion, unsure how to prepare. Chenbi looks uneasy, realizing that those with resources will grow stronger quickly. The academy's gap between classes becomes clearer. Aster notes that combat instructors and even active battle mages will be brought in to oversee training. The academy is escalating the situation far beyond ordinary education. Aster observes the instructor lowering her head slightly, as if hiding something. He suspects the sudden shift is not a simple school decision, but an order from higher authority. The duel preparation period begins with hidden pressure behind it. Late at night, an owl flies through the dark sky and drops a letter into Aster's hands. The message signals an urgent summons, drawing him away from the academy grounds. Aster walks outside and notices the surroundings feel unfamiliar, despite being near the same location. The air carries a strange pressure, as if the space itself has been altered. He realizes the environment is no longer normal. Standing under the night sky, Aster looks around with suspicion. The academy's routine has been disrupted, and he understands that this is connected to the duel preparation period. Aster arrives at a large building that appears distorted by swirling magical energy. The structure resembles a sealed training ground, but the atmosphere feels unnatural. The space has been transformed into something closer to a battlefield. He examines the area and concludes that it has been artificially created as a test zone. The magic surrounding it is dense, forming barriers that prevent easy escape. Aster realizes this is meant to push students beyond ordinary limits. Aster raises his hand and releases controlled magic. Red bursts of energy scatter into the air, confirming that the space responds to power. He recognizes that the trial has already begun. The magical energy thickens, surrounding Aster with floating fragments that resemble blood-like drops. The environment reacts violently, showing that this is not a harmless exercise. Aster remains steady, though he notes the danger is greater than expected. From the distance, the Elder appears, having followed him into the strange zone. Damien looks uncertain, realizing the academy has placed them in a situation far beyond normal training. Aster activates a defensive spell, creating a glowing barrier to protect them. The Elder watches in shock, recognizing Aster's control and experience. The night trial reveals that the academy's duel preparation hides something far more threatening. Within the distorted training zone, the elderly mage confronts Aster, while red spheres of condensed magic float around them. The old man studies Aster's control and questions how he can shape unstable mana so precisely. Aster observes the floating red fragments and calmly analyzes the elder's technique. He recognizes the structure of the spell and understands its weaknesses. Instead of reacting emotionally, he focuses on measuring distance and flow. With steady confidence, Aster signals that he is ready to proceed. The Elder realizes that Aster is not intimidated. The tension shifts, and the trial moves from testing awareness to direct confrontation. The Elder acknowledges Aster's composure and prepares a formal magical exchange. The red spheres pulse heavier, pressing down on the ground. Aster lowers his stance, gathering mana without wasting movement. Aster decides to respond first and begins condensing mana at a rapid rate. Blue energy gathers in front of him, forming a concentrated core. The surrounding red fragments vibrate in reaction to the opposing force. The elder senses the scale of the spell too late. The blue core expands violently, generating layered magical circles that interlock in precise patterns. Aster completes the technique and declares the outcome through action rather than words. The compressed mana detonates forward in a controlled blast. The shockwave tears through the red spheres and overwhelms the elder's formation. The explosion spreads across the artificial battlefield, shattering magical constructs and scattering debris. The elder braces himself but is forced backward by the impact. The sky above the zone ripples under the strain. As smoke rises and the energy dissipates, Aster stands firm amid the aftermath. The elder stares in disbelief, recognizing that Aster's mastery surpasses what he expected from a student. The trial confirms that Aster's power has advanced beyond ordinary limits. After the explosion settles, Aster stands calmly within the fading smoke. He evaluates the remaining magical pressure and concludes that the elder's attack lacked refinement. The elder steps forward, shaken, and demands to know the source of Aster's power. He cannot reconcile Aster's age with the level of control displayed. Suspicion replaces his earlier confidence. Aster answers with composure, claiming he is merely an ordinary student. The elder rejects the explanation, insisting that such purity and compression of mana should be impossible at his level. The two face each other across the damaged field. The elder reassesses the situation, realizing brute force will not reveal Aster's secret. He changes his approach and begins analyzing technique instead of output. The elder questions where Aster learned such precise manipulation, focusing on the earlier spell formation. Aster listens without revealing emotion. The wind continues to swirl, reflecting the lingering instability of the barrier. Aster lightly gestures upward, drawing the elder's attention to the night sky. The motion appears casual, but the elder senses a shift in mana above them. Without warning, a small owl familiar descends and lands above Aster, carrying a faint red glow. The elder pauses, recognizing that the summoning was silent and seamless. The battlefield quiets as attention shifts. The scene transitions to an interior chamber where the elder sits across from Aster. A glowing blue orb is placed on the table between them, radiating controlled energy. The elder states that certain matters must now be addressed directly. The orb activates, projecting complex magical patterns around Aster. His expression tightens as he senses the depth of the spell's structure. The trial evolves from combat testing into a deeper examination of his true ability. In the depths of Hameln Great Forest, an ancient ruin stands hidden beneath towering trees as rumors spread about undead appearing near its sealed entrance. Inside, a chamber filled with glowing blue displays. Aster, a black-haired youth, studies recorded images of grotesque creatures moving unnaturally within the ruins. Across from him, an elder mage explains that these beings are not ordinary undead, but entities acting beyond lingering flesh-bound instincts. A detailed projection reveals a red-eyed monster roaring violently, its body radiating unstable energy, unlike common corpses reanimated by residual memories. The elder clarifies that typical undead are driven by traces left in their remains. Yet these creatures move as if guided by something deeper. Aster listens carefully as the explanation turns toward soul-driven undead formed by naturally occurring corruption rather than deliberate necromancy. Considering the implications, Aster questions whether the ancient ruins once served as a seal containing such abominations beneath the forest. The elder reveals the name Deathrose, describing it as the most impure classification among monstrous beings connected to sealed catastrophes. An image of a dark cube surrounded by violet energy appears, illustrating how unsealing Deathrose would allow wrathful entities to spill outward. Despite the urgency, the elder admits his disciples lack readiness, and estimates departure toward the forest may take 2 days. Aster remains composed while the elder offers freedom of choice, refusing to bind him with obligation or material persuasion. After brief silence, Aster states his intention to go, disregarding hesitation and accepting the danger without bargaining. Surprised by the swift decision, the elder studies Aster's unwavering gaze and senses deeper motivation behind the resolve. Observation turns toward Aster's concern for a friend possibly connected to the spreading corruption within the forest ruins. Standing firm, Aster rejects exploiting another's life for advantage, choosing action over safety as the looming threat of Deathrose grows nearer. The elder's stern composure briefly falters as he studies Aster's unwavering expression, realizing the young mage has already decided to step into danger. Standing calmly before him, Aster admits that even if forbidden, he would have found another path toward the forest and the sealed ruin. Red magic circles flare around his hand as he accepts the risk, convinced that what he seeks lies within the corrupted depths. Under the night sky, swirling currents of mana form a vast gate above ancient stone walls, signaling preparation for immediate departure. The elder hands Aster a warp gate ticket, ensuring he may pass through without delay once he reaches the transit point. A protective robe artifact follows, placed into Aster's grasp, despite his concern over how much the elder is sacrificing. Refusing to hesitate, the elder produces one final item, presenting it with unusual seriousness that captures Aster's full attention. A smooth metallic mask rests in his palm, identified as the token of New Moon, an object tied to hidden authority. Surprise crosses Aster's face as he realizes the token connects to a secretive faction operating beyond public recognition. Warnings follow, explaining that concealment alone will not ensure safety because powerful allies could strike unseen intruders without hesitation. Aster acknowledges the risk and declares he will handle the political consequences, including tensions with the Blando family. Confidence sharpens his gaze as he accepts responsibility for both the mission and any aftermath tied to his name. Soon after, a brief letter announcing his departure to train is discovered, leaving his companions stunned and confused. Shock spreads across their faces as they process his sudden decision to leave without prior notice or explanation. Determination replaces confusion when one companion loudly insists on training as well, unwilling to remain behind while Aster moves forward. Greentown stands restless beside the Hameln Great Forest as news spreads that a monster wave has risen again. After 10 quiet years, merchants rush to load wagons before nightfall, while fear and anger toward distant imperial authorities circulate through crowded streets. Inside a tavern, a worried pathfinder listens to complaints, realizing that another expedition toward the forest may soon be demanded. Seated alone among barrels and empty chairs, he weighs his options while recalling a message about an old debt resurfacing. The reminder makes clear that someone influential expects cooperation and may soon send representatives in person. Anxiety deepens as he understands refusal would carry consequences. He cannot afford within a town already on edge. A heavily built mercenary confronts him directly, pressing for a decision about returning to Hameln Great Forest. Desperation shows on the Pathfinder's face as he pleads for mercy, arguing that entering the forest now is nearly suicidal. Despite previous payment and hazard bonuses, the mercenary insists the original contract binds him to guide the 4th base camp. Feigning sympathy, the mercenary claims understanding but refuses withdrawal, stating survival requires profit even amid looming disaster. Greed slowly replaces hesitation as he imagines rich gains from exploiting a mage desperate enough to hire guidance. A rough map spreads across the table while plans form to travel with skilled protection and secure a larger share. Calculations continue as he envisions adding capital, finding suitable lodgings, and rising in status through one decisive haul. Sudden footsteps interrupt his thoughts, drawing attention toward the tavern entrance, where cloaked figures appear unexpectedly. Confusion spreads across the room as the newcomers stand silently, signaling that the situation in Greentown is about to shift. Inside the tavern, a cloaked figure approaches the anxious Pathfinder and calmly confirms his identity as Oberon. After verifying that Oberon serves a certain master, the stranger concludes he has found the correct intermediary for negotiations. Oberon, attempting courtesy, offers assistance and proposes handing over a detailed map of the Great Forest to secure cooperation. With visible reluctance, Oberon places the rolled map on the table, admitting he lacks courage to risk his own life. He insists the document holds value equal to survival, hoping the exchange will satisfy the mage's expectations. Gratitude briefly fills the room, yet the cloaked figure's posture stiffens as a sudden command halts all movement. A chilling warning follows, granting only a single second for compliance while deadly intent saturates the air. Before Oberon can react, the masked assailant lunges forward with overwhelming speed and strikes decisively. Crimson sprays across the tavern as panic erupts, leaving witnesses frozen in disbelief at the swift execution. The attacker stands over the fallen body, confirming the allotted second has expired without mercy. Shock grips the remaining observer as the masked figure turns slightly, revealing emotionless eyes beneath the hood. Amid the spreading silence and blood-stained floor, a grim question lingers about whether anyone can truly overcome the rising death throes. A surge of violent mana streaked across the forest sky and crashed beyond the distant hills, announcing that Aster, the back-alley mage who once regressed, had begun moving again. Within the overgrown ruins, an ancient stone tower trembled as residual energy spread outward, signaling that something sealed long ago was reacting to his return. At the center of the crumbling hall, Aster sat calmly beneath broken pillars, observing the disturbance he had anticipated since regaining memories of his previous life. Soon after, Director Sok and his subordinate entered the ruins cautiously, already aware that abnormal mana fluctuations were gathering below the structure. Deep underground, a massive crimson crystal pulsed violently, its unstable power pressing against a complex sealing array designed to restrain it. Repeated surges shook the chamber as cracks of energy crawled across the formation, proving that the unsealing had started but remained incomplete. Director Sook studied the overflowing aura with narrowed eyes, and determined the seal was weakening gradually, rather than collapsing instantly. The crimson crystal throbbed again, scattering distorted waves that battered the cavern walls and threatened to overwhelm the lin-sealing spell. After brief assessment, he concluded additional time was needed before total release, though the pressure was increasing faster than expected. Attention shifted when news arrived about an ancient war mage searching nearby ruins, someone rumored to be collecting forbidden artifacts. Since maintaining the unstable seal required focus, Director Sook assigned the pursuit of that war mage to his subordinate, without hesitation. Accepting the order with a sharp grin, the subordinate stepped away, confident that hunting a relic seeker would be simple work. Meanwhile, a hooded traveler moved quietly through the forest path, unaware he was being identified as the ancient war mage. A rugged adventurer carrying heavy gear walked ahead of him, convinced that recent dangers inside the ruins had already settled. From behind the trees, calculating eyes followed their movements, as Aster's carefully arranged hunt began unfolding exactly as planned. Within the Hameln Great Forest, the hooded war mage, Aster trailed closely behind the pathfinder Dorian, who carried heavy supplies while remaining alert to any disturbance. Dorian refused to rely on Aster's spatial storage, despite knowing its convenience, choosing instead to keep emergency rations and tools strapped firmly to his back. As filtered sunlight cut through the canopy, Aster quietly confirmed their location while noting that Dorian had recently earned the title of New Moon. Without warning, tremors rippled across the treetops and startled birds scattered, signaling that hostile creatures were approaching at unnatural speed. A massive orc from Hameln burst through the forest line, charging downhill with violent momentum toward the unsuspecting travelers. Realizing they were far from any established base camp, Dorian understood the ambush made no tactical sense and immediately prepared to intercept. The orc's speed exceeded expectations, forcing Dorian to grit his teeth as he struggled to calculate the creature's sudden appearance. Before the beast could strike, Aster raised one hand calmly and began activating a spell he had already prepared in advance. Red spheres of condensed mana materialized above them, forming a layered defensive barrier between the charging orc and its intended targets. Complex runic circles unfolded around Aster's hooded figure, stabilizing the hovering mana while directing its trajectory with precision. At his signal, the crimson spheres rained downward in controlled streams, accelerating like spears toward the advancing orc unit. The projectiles struck repeatedly, tearing through armor and flesh, halting the charge before the monsters could close distance. The leading orc faltered in confusion as its momentum collapsed under the barrage of concentrated mana strikes. Explosive impacts shattered the forest floor, scattering debris while the remaining creatures were forced back by overwhelming force. When the dust settled, Dorian rose slowly from the cracked ground and recognized that Aster's calculated intervention had ended the threat instantly. As they resumed walking, Dorian cautiously asked Aster for temporary access to his spatial storage, hoping to lighten the weight pressing against his shoulders. Aster refused without hesitation, making it clear that Dorian needed to carry his own equipment despite the earlier assistance in battle. The brief exchange ended as another violent tremor echoed through the forest, followed by a sharp cry from an approaching creature, a goblin. Like monster burst from the trees with distorted features and abnormal size, rushing toward them in a reckless charge. Before Dorian could fully react, Aster moved first and cut the creature down cleanly, ending the attack in a single decisive motion. The body collapsed at their feet, and Dorian immediately crouched to inspect it more closely. Examining the corpse, Dorian noted the unusual height and muscle density, far exceeding typical goblins found near the second base camp. Aster allowed the inspection calmly while observing the surroundings for additional threats. After a brief assessment, Dorian concluded the creature matched the Kent goblins reported in earlier expeditions, studying the claws and torn soles of the goblins' feet. Dorian determined the pack had been running through rough terrain in haste. Mud and bark embedded in its nails confirmed prolonged movement rather than territorial expansion. From these details, he reasoned that the goblins had been fleeing from something powerful enough to terrify an entire hunting group. They advanced deeper into the forest and soon discovered multiple goblin corpses scattered across the path ahead. Dorian suggested adjusting their route to avoid whatever had caused such devastation, preferring caution over confrontation. After brief consideration, Aster agreed that avoiding unknown dangers was the wiser decision for now. Aster silently acknowledged that Rayleigh's pathfinding was exceptionally precise, guiding them through the Hamiln Great Forest while avoiding clusters of dangerous mana disturbances. Despite the area being crowded with magical anomalies that interfered with wide-range detection, Rayleigh consistently selected routes that bypassed nearly every hidden threat. Observing this, Aster reconsidered his earlier judgment and allowed the Pathfinder to lead with greater trust as they continued forward. Night gradually settled over the forest canopy as the group approached the outer edge of a vast swamp near the first base camp. Rayleigh slowed their pace and instructed a temporary halt, choosing to scout the perimeter before risking entry into unstable terrain. Soon afterward, the three men gathered around a small campfire, conserving energy while preparing for the next stage of travel. Aster reflected that choosing the safer route had cost them valuable time, though Rayleigh's caution remained understandable given recent events. The masked mage concluded that lingering too long would be dangerous, especially with a monster wave predicted to erupt soon. Responsibility weighed heavily on Rayleigh, who believed earlier hesitation regarding death rows had contributed to the current instability in the forest. Suddenly, urgent movement approached their camp as a scout burst through the trees with visible panic. Disturbing news followed, revealing that the sovereign of the swamp had appeared far beyond its expected territory. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Rayleigh understood that immediate retreat was their only viable option.